Hi, everyone. We are live at our Digital Wellness podcast. Uh, Today, we're having a special guest, Rachel Altvater, which is talking about play therapy. She's a registered play therapist, has her own practice, and is specialized in child and youth trauma, psychology, and play. Welcome to the podcast. And we are also joined by Hema, our AWE digital wellness team member that's joining with a lot of interest in play and mental health. So we'll have quite a bit of questions for you as the expert in the subject, and we'll try to also see if we have some similar ideas about play, which I love. It's one of my frameworks for happiness. Playfulness and play is one of the 8 Ps. And I would love to hear more about that, and I hope the audience does too as well. So welcome.
Thanks for having me, and thanks everyone for tuning in. I'm stoked to have you here with us and excited to see how this conversation will transpire.
Yes. Same.
Good afternoon, Hema. Do you want to start with some intro topics?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Christian. And Rachel, again, so happy you're here. I love talking about play. Every day is a great day to talk about play. So I want to talk about why we minimize play as just entertainment. You know, when people first think of play therapy, they think it's toys, right? So can you give us a little bit more background? What is going on clinically when it comes to a play therapy session? How are caregivers and parents involved? And just kind of give us a little bit of background. If you want to provide history on play therapy, I would love that too.
Yeah, all the things.
All
Yes.
the things.
Play is not just a frivolous activity, which I think is a common thought and misconception for those who are further removed from that experience. Right? I think a lot of times we talk from an adult lens, from our adult perspective. And while we absolutely have grown from a child perspective ourselves, we inevitably see things from where we are at the present time, right? So I say this because we become a little further removed from our earlier experiences. Of course, we all can reflect back and think of different times in our life when we were younger and maybe our favorite toys, which actually, let's do that. For those of you who are here, think about what your favorite toy was or what some of your favorite things were and add that wherever, little chat box. We would love to know and to just have you sit in that space and reconnect with your inner child as we're going through this. Because as I'm saying, we're a little further removed. Let's reconnect in this conversation. We're talking about playfulness. We should be playful while we're talking about it. So
Yeah.
I love it. Yes, it's an interactive live conversation. So any listeners and all the platforms, please feel free to chime in with your comments. And thanks for making it fun already.
Yeah.
Rachel, what is your favorite toy? Do you remember which one you could say?
I have a couple favorites, but I will say something that I loved was Kelly dolls, which are Barbie's younger sister.
Yes, I remember Kelly dolls.
Miniatures. So it was like little mini Barbies, and I had like all the mini accessories and all the things. I actually, no joke, have it in my closet in here. I've carried a couple toys through childhood with me. Those and Beanie Babies, which was like I'm a millennial kid. So that was I thought I was going to get rich. Okay. I still have them. I'm waiting for the day.
Early retirement.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
I just love them and they're here with me. But yeah, with the Kelly dolls, that was probably one of my favorites. I had several favorites, but that was a tip top favorite. Yes. How about you?
Polly Pocket.
Oh,
loved Polly Pockets. I had all of them. I loved the ones that connected to storybooks, so you could get the Polly storybook plus the pocket. Oh, I was obsessed. And you know what I really like to do, which is kind of weird? I love to clean them because they're little tiny spaces. So I remember taking a toothbrush and like cleaning. It's silly, but I had so much enjoyment of keeping my Polly Pockets clean. It made me so happy.
I love, and I just want to say, so I got this on Marketplace. It's a little Polly Pocket.
Oh my God, look, that's actually a newer one.
So this was I got some toys for my son. He'll probably come up several times, but his name's Lennox. And I know I really want one of the older ones, but I've gotten something for him or something for the practice. And they were also selling this. And I was like, well, I'm going to get this from me, but we got some
That's
cute.
so cool. It's like a space one.
Yeah, they're little.
Yes.
Wow.
I know. So
I'm
I
jealous.
wish I could hand it through the screen to you.
This is when we could just play during the interview. That's the next step, right?
Exactly.
Evolution.
Over. So
Awesome.
this is what you all are in store for.
Yeah.
But please, reflect on what your favorite toys were.
What about you, Christian? Do you have a favorite toy from the past?
Well, it's definitely gonna date me. I am not a millennial. I'm Gen X. So mine was E.T. doll.
Oh, cool. You had the doll, the big version.
Yes.
Very cool. Did you put it in your backpack and on your bike and it was everywhere with you?
Not on my bike. I did break my tooth biking, so
Oh,
I saved
no.
my doll by
You
taking
saved E.T.
the.
The priorities were there.
I did not bring him to dangerous,
Yes.
adventures, but I did keep him very long. Yes, I think that
Oh.
it was well made because it wasn't like falling apart. But I kept him many years.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like you were saying, how we've held on to it, and not just holding on to like the physical items, which that too, but even the memories, even us reconnecting to those times and spaces, and just the joy it brings now, reflecting on that, right? And this goes back to me answering your question that this is not a frivolous activity by any means, right? There is deep meaning and connection and learning, all the different things we'll get into. So I think that that's something important for us to keep in mind. I'll probably mention the word perspective quite a bit, that it really is a matter of perspective. And from an adult lens, if we are viewing child play just as it is, then from an untrained eye, they're just playing. And I air quote because that is a common thing in play therapy, where a lot of times caregivers or those who aren't trained on this particular method of therapy think that it is just playing. And so many times parents will bring their kids to therapy and say, I know this is play therapy, and can you talk to my kid about what happened in school, or, this talk. And developmentally, that's not where kids are. Play is a child's natural mode of communication. It is our first language. I'll probably give a little sidestep anecdotes and stories. This makes me think of being in an airport once where there were two kids who very clearly did not speak the same language, and they were playing together. And from an outsider's perspective, really getting into the play. And I knew that they couldn't speak the same language because you could hear them speak, but also their parents speak. So I knew that, but that didn't cause a barrier in the play space from an outsider's perspective. I obviously can't explain what their perspective was, but yeah, so there's a lot that goes on here, which again, we'll dive in. So stay tuned for that.
If I can add to this, I do coach some families, some couples, and when we talk about, and we'll talk a lot about in this podcast, the difference between child play and adult play, or if there should be a difference. And you mentioned that it's the child's go-to and first language, but it's also the adults, right? Adults also play non-verbally, do things non-verbally. And if you want to come back to the verbal aspect, what I do often with my couple clients, I let them role play, right? So a different type of play with verbal and non-verbal interaction, and being in character and expressing emotions and thinking in a different lens, right? So in terms of perspective, play allows people to see a different perspective, maybe see the perspective of their partners or of someone else, right?
Absolutely. And trying on different roles, trying out different scenarios without the same level of potential consequence, right? Like you're able to try something out in a play space that maybe isn't socially acceptable outside the play space, or I can take on this role. I can play this particular character and try this out, see what the outcome might be. Was it not what I was looking for? Should I do something different?
My favorite holiday is Halloween, and That's why, right? I can be someone
Yeah,
else.
yeah,
I
truly.
love that. My favorite is Halloween too, Chris. I resonate with that absolutely. So yeah, Rachel, if you could go back to speaking about the child's play being the primary language,
Yeah.
I hear parents say, use your words, tell me what it is. Why is that discouraged in play therapy? Why do we, as therapists, want to get away from saying that to the kid verbally, especially when we know that so much of their development comes from abstract reasoning and the right environment, as you were saying? Instead of asking a child to explain their feelings, you build the environment for them to express it.
Yeah. We want to meet kids where they are.
Yes.
So I would say two things. One, with parents, you are teaching your kids. So there are going to be times where you want to encourage that they speak, that they engage in verbal dialogue, that they use their words. Absolutely. And if we don't talk it out, we act it out, which in play is great. When it comes to tantrums, big feelings, big behaviors, they're going to act it out. So it does make sense when a parent steps in and says, use your words, basically speak it out versus acting it out. In play therapy and just in the play realm, we want to meet kids where they are versus constantly encouraging them to meet us where we are, right? If we want them to meet us where we are cognitively and verbally versus saying, hey, how can you communicate this to me in a way that makes sense to you, that feels best for you? Kids a lot of times say, I don't know, or they don't know the words to use. And initially, when I started providing play therapy, I thought, I didn't say this to them. No, you're just not telling me. It's okay if you don't want to tell me, right? Like I didn't say it that way, but that's just my internal dialogue. The more time that's passed, I really genuinely do believe that kids don't know. They know internally that there's a certain feeling or experience, but they don't necessarily know how to make sense of it, how to articulate it, or if they have absorbed it non-verbally, how to find a verbal way to describe what's going on. And if they're working within this space of play that's full of symbols and metaphors and not, necessarily direct, I don't know the right way to phrase this, but like a direct recreation, which can happen too. But it's harder for them to say this and then this and then this. More so, I have this feeling about this, so let me play out that feeling. Or there's a certain I'm feeling connected to a certain toy for some reason. And I'm not really sure why. And I will say with this also kind of, I'll add a little bit more. This goes into a question that you asked initially, is about, the history of play therapy and play therapy as a whole. Play is a projective process. So kids will externalize, they will place their internal thoughts, feelings, and experiences onto an outside object. It is safer to say, Mr. Peanut is having a hard day. Let's help Mr. Peanut versus, I heard you had a hard day at school today. Let's talk about it. Which that happened once in a session when I was newer in my career. And I had said, parent came in, talked to my child about what happened, a young child. Oh, I heard you had a bad, no, I didn't. Where do you go from there? Right. And a child either may not have the words, or it may be too close. It may feel uncomfortable, but projecting onto something else, it's easier. It's like an adult. What would you tell a friend? We can more easily say what we would tell a friend or what's going on with Mr. Peanut rather than it being too close. And also sometimes when it's too close, we can't really see it the same way. Right? There are times where someone is providing feedback to me and I'm like, I know I should know this. And it's so different when it's us because we're in our own heads, we're in our own experiences. We have a certain bias. So with projective technique, that's something that's really important with play therapy. And I will say also something that I don't think a lot of child therapists really know, that play is the first documented method of child therapy. Oh, wow. It wasn't called play therapy, but It is the first documented method. And I say that because I'm going to assume that there was mental health support throughout time. So I don't want to say that, modern day is the way. And what is known now, some of the early pioneers said, hey, kids need a space to process things too. They used projective techniques and miniatures. So Anna Freud, I know a lot of us know, I won't get into too many of the details. Hang on, everyone. Just a little history. Anna Freud, who was a daughter of Sigmund Freud, a lot of people know Freud. Anna Freud had connected to the therapy of the time, psychoanalysis. A big thing in psychoanalysis was something called free association. So when you see the stereotypical therapy experience where someone's laying on the couch and there's someone sitting behind them writing on a clipboard, that is rooted in the basis of psychoanalysis. That's not what therapy is nowadays. Maybe there might still be some experiences, but by and large, it's not the experience anymore.
Right.
But the thought was they wanted the therapist to be what's called a blank slate, so that when the client is processing, they would free associate. They would just say what comes to their mind as it comes to their mind, and they would just keep talking and talking and talking. And the therapist would write down notes to keep track of what they were saying, but also there was a bit more distance so that they wouldn't influence the therapy process. Now that shifted. The relationship is the primary change agent as we know therapy today, so it has shifted. Anna Freud saw play as the free associative process for kids. So instead of laying on the couch speaking, kids would play and just like free play. And then there was another therapist at the time, or around the time, Melanie Klein, also a psychoanalytic provider to my recollection, and she introduced miniatures. So that's small representations of real world objects like the Kelly dolls, like the Polly Pockets, right?
Yes.
They're all miniatures.
Yes.
And ultimately try to find miniatures that have certain categories that can represent real world objects and experiences so that kids could use them to project their experiences, their thoughts and feelings onto that particular item, and then work through their psychological challenges from a safe enough distance.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The free association and connection to play is a really cool bridge. I'm wondering if there's a connection to deep flow state as well. Did they see that in the early stages, that being in a flow state while free associating led to greater depth, maybe I should say led to more information from the child itself?
Ooh. So I'm actually not quite sure of their connection with flow state, but that would make sense.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, when we immerse ourselves in an enjoyable activity, such as play, the hope is that we get to a space of flow where we're able to just be fully immersed within the experience. How they categorized that, what they knew about that, I'm not really quite sure. I don't know how they were analyzing that process. Different therapists operate from different therapy approaches and lenses. So I know that we'll probably get into that as well a little later. They very much at that time viewed therapy from a certain framework, the psychoanalytic framework. And if you think of Freud and like, oh, your mom and stuff like that, I mean, it's true. That is the core of the framework, is these early experiences and how they shape who we are and any potential distress. And there's a lot of details I could get into that I won't right now unless they come up. But ultimately, I wonder how different clinicians view the same process and how many categorize that as flow and see that as flow, and how many may call it something different. But at the end of the day, we might just be calling the same thing. We might be conceptualizing it from a different lens, making sense of it in different ways. So I'm not really sure, and is my answer.
That's perfect.
In the subject of flow, I've done a lot of research on that. So, for the audience, flow is the state of, kind of when your challenge matches your ability, or just a little bit more challenging your ability, and you're completely immersed in a task. It's often described as losing the sense of time. And you could imagine that some children would say, Mom, Dad, I lost the sense of time because I was playing, right?
Right.
There is definitely some link to play and flow. There's a study that we'll talk later that mentions some studies that talk about flow and play. So it is clearer now that there is, but as Rachel mentioned, perhaps at that time they were not looking through that lens, or they did not know how to measure or how to define. But now we know that play and flow are quite linked. It depends what type of play, how much, and then you can also have co-regulated play where flow can be regulated to more than one person, right?
Yeah.
I think of building blocks too, how the past experiences have served as building blocks to what we understand today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I just want to play devil's advocate because, at we're very interested in one of our core pillar, which is emotional regulation. And when you talk about, the language of how children can project, a lot of theory says that emotional regulations should start by number one, naming the emotion, right? And it comes from the fact that gives a pause, right? So when you're thinking about naming, you're using your Broca's area, Wernicke's for the neuroscientist geeks, or prefrontal lobe cortex. But basically, you're thinking and then you're feeling less, which is the amygdala, right, or the limbic system. And so that kind of, by the fact that you're thinking of naming it or kind of trying to describe it, you are lessening the impact of that potentially heightened emotional state, which might be anger or frustration. If it's a good emotion like flow or awe, you don't want to think too much about it. You just want to be immersed and embodied in it. But that's one of the way to regulate negative emotion. So how would you say that in a child that cannot really name it, is there other tools or ways, like can you draw or play music, or how can you kind of conceptualize that for the clinician, the audience as well?
Yeah, yes to all of that. And what is loudest in my mind is connection is regulation. I've also recently learned that regulation doesn't necessarily mean that you are calm. It means you're able to move through the emotion. I don't know the best way to express it, but like you're able to move through the emotion as it's happening versus it taking over you, basically. But back to what I was saying with the connection is regulation. It's first meeting kids where they are. And I'll use my son as an example because I think that it's great for like real world examples when we're talking about things. When he has big feelings, my nervous system is activated immediately, right? Any parent, your nervous system is activated. And that is a biological response. We then will respond to the activation because our survival mode gets kicked in our mind and body. Now, different people with different sensory feelings can feel different ways, and it can impact us different ways. Generally speaking, though, ultimately, there is this dysregulation in our body when our child or a child around us is feeling dysregulated. So oftentimes there is this response of stop. I'm not saying this is what I do. I'm just saying, generally speaking, stop crying, or take them away from, like, let's say you're out in public, take them away or whatever. And that doesn't necessarily calm them down. And then we don't know what to do. I bend down and I normalize, I validate my child's experience. It is really hard being you right now, or I can see that you have really big feelings about that, or it makes complete sense why you are so upset right now. He's 2.5. He understands to the extent that he understands. I'm still going to speak to him as if he understands every word that I'm saying, because that's how he learns.
Yeah.
I validate. And I get on his level and I model. So I need to calm my nervous system. So I start to engage in diaphragmatic breathing. And I encourage that he does that. But how many times does it really upset someone when you say, calm down? You're like, thank you. I didn't think to do that myself. Great. I am so calm now. Wonderful.
The opposite reaction.
Well,
right?
but if you didn't tell me that right now, thank goodness. Exactly. Right. It's not helpful. So for kids, model behavior, I mean, any human, especially kids, model behavior is essential. And it's helpful for us. So when we regulate, our nervous system signals to our child, you are okay, you are safe, I am here with you. And inevitably, their nervous system will start to calm down. It might take a different period of time because it depends on how activated they are, if they're still in that environment, a lot of different factors. But if we're able to meet them where they are, hold that space with them, calm our minds and bodies, signaling to their minds and bodies it's okay to calm down, modeling that behavior, that will regulate. And you don't need words for that. That is all connection. And then oftentimes I'll ask my son, do you want a hug? Do you want some space right now? And then he'll come to me and give me a hug if he wants a hug, or sometimes he just wants more space because his body is telling him that's not it for me right now.
Right.
Really, that's going back to meeting kids where they are. Now, to add on to that, yes, once there is regulation, once that there is a sense of safety within the nervous system, and there maybe needs to be some more emotional support, doing something expressive, creative, playing, that helps with movement, moving the feelings through the body, and then expressing it in the way that aligns the child, which is oftentimes non-verbally. A lot of times kids don't understand. They understand, but they don't understand. I always say that, right? they don't really fully understand what's going on. They just know that their body doesn't feel right, and they want it to end. They want that to stop right then. And so the more that you're able to model and offer the space for whatever aligns with them to express it in a way that feels right will help with ongoing emotion regulation and establishing more emotional intelligence. It's helpful in those moments to also name the feeling. I will say two things though. Kids will tell you if you're wrong, if they feel safe enough to do so. Kids tell me all the time, that's not how I'm feeling. Oh, I didn't get that quite right. But also you're helping name things so that they can start to learn those feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So it might be something where they're like, no, that's not right, but they're actually starting to gain more emotional intelligence. So that's my comprehensive thoughts and insights from what you were just mentioning.
Yeah, thank you. And we have perhaps some children listening, but probably adults. And this is useful for adults because I know many of them that they know but they don't know, right? So you can say that for children, but many adults don't know as well, right? So
Totally normalizing the human experience. Yes,
exactly.
we don't know, even if you have all the knowledge, which is, I mean, we have the knowledge at our fingertips, but also we don't know all the things. The more we know, the more we realize what we don't know. The less we know, the more we think we know. So the more you know, the more you're not going to really know how to proceed. And that's normal. And there's nothing wrong with you. And it doesn't mean that you don't know enough. You know a lot and you are navigating new experiences. And it makes sense that you're trying to figure it out. It's totally normal and okay to be where you are. I just really want to emphasize that I, as a relatively new mom, also am navigating newness and uncertainty. And it doesn't matter how much I know about child development and the best, most ideal way to respond in situations. I am still a human first and foremost, and I'm still navigating this experience alongside of everyone, even with the knowledge that I have. Every child is different. Every experience is different, and we are figuring it out as we go along. So you're right.
Yeah, I really appreciate you giving us less pressure. I think parents definitely need that. And I liked how we borrow the calm from the adult. The adult needs to model, and the shift of responsibility needs to come from, am I regulating myself first? But let's be honest, Rachel, we make mistakes. And parents are not good. And I'm going to say this as a non-parent, so anybody that is hating on me, fine. But as a non-parent, when we do make a mistake, what can we do to really empower the power of an apology? And I know Christian has some good insights on the power of apology as well, but I'd love to hear from your side of the world. How can we take advantage of that opportunity? Because yes, mistakes are part of it.
Yes, it's all repair. Sorry, go ahead.
Just before I go into the apology, I do have now 15, soon to be 16 or 60-year-old kid. So I've had my share of parenting. And I will admit that, sometimes that he was co-regulating me, right? So it's not one way, right? Yeah. And I remember specifically, like, he's been doing, mindfulness, meditation, breath work, and all those things for many years since he was a kid, which I also recommend to parents. And at one time, like, he saw me, like, not angry, not just kind of agitated, a little bit stressed. And he actually took me down and did a 25 guided meditation to me.
Oh, wow.
Right? So, yeah. So kids can also, right, don't think that the parents got it figured out. Kids can also help parents and vice versa. It's always a communication and to be vulnerable and to have those connections that allow everyone to level up, right?
Yeah, and creating the space that fosters those opportunities. Does the child feel comfortable enough to say, hey, I have something that might be helpful for you right now? And that's, again, human to human connection. Now, of course, we want to be mindful. I'm not saying this was the case with you, mindful of like kids stepping in and constantly having to do that. But it's beautiful for them to model that back to you, right?
Yeah.
Like, because ultimately, where do they learn that? Most times it's probably from you, right? From their parents.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really beautiful. Yeah. And I was starting to say that ultimately it's all in the repair. I can think of not that long ago when Lennox was struggling and I yelled and I'm like, oh, I know better, but I let it out. Right. And then I felt terrible. I just felt so terrible. And I apologized and I expressed to him. I just told him, had really big feelings, and then I yelled, and that's not the way that we should go about doing these things. I'm really sorry. I'm going to work on when I get upset to take deep breaths. Again, I don't know what he understands, but I'm going to still say it anyways, and modeling that. All of it's in the modeling. It's okay to make mistakes. There are going to be what are called ruptures in relationships. It's inevitable. It's all about the repair. It's how you show back up, how you talk, communicate, and I either talk or even through play. You can recreate situations with play and have something similar happen and do different in the play, or explain different things in the play, or allow the space for the child to express what their experience was in that moment and communicate in that way. So yes, it's going to happen.
Love that. And you're saying repair is possible.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Repair is always possible. It's how you go about it. And of course, there's a lot of, is it long-standing, ruptures? Then that might take longer to repair. And is there a willingness to repair, right? Because they are always possible, and we need all the parties, to be willing participants for the repair, and then taking ownership and modeling all the things that we just talked about. Like there are caveats. Like it does depend if it actually works. I know that there are quite a few adults that are now disconnected from their families and saying, this is the boundary I'm keeping. So I'm saying repair is possible. And some people have maybe made decisions. I don't want to have that repair. And what is the reason for that? We won't get into that too much right now. And, is there some barrier that could be addressed to make repair more possible?
Yeah.
Well, thanks for showing, one pathway. And again, as we're talking about children, we're kind of realizing that we are also still children, still have to grow up and still have families that don't talk to each other, or coworkers, right? So this could be in the workplace, this can be in romantic relationship, in friendship, in the ghosting phenomenon that we are having, right? People that cannot communicate because they don't know how, they don't have that they don't build that space, right?
Yeah.
So that's relatable to the audience and to everyone in everyday life. And as Hema mentioned, I'm a big proponent of forgiveness, of communication, of active listening, and also the forgiveness starts with yourself, right? You forgive other so that you're happier, and then a bonus, that person also will be happier, right?
Yeah.
So it starts with apologizing to yourself first. That's what I'm hearing.
I love that. Self-compassion.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
That's where it starts. Yeah.
Yeah. So the context is both self-compassion and compassion for others. And, when you think about, we all admitted that we make mistakes, right? So why is there so much problem with relationship? Often is that, we think that we have a negativity bias for fear, and we have a positivity bias for ego, right? So we think that we wouldn't do this in that situation, although we would do the exact same thing if we were the same person at that situation, right? So if you can kind of get out of the emotional hijack, you can kind of have compassion and try to wish less suffering for someone who did something because of those circumstances, and then the dialogue can begin, right?
Yeah.
And yes, sometimes there needs to be boundaries and safety and distance, but there's always, as you mentioned, I agree, Rachel, there's always a way to repair.
Yes.
It's part of being human.
Oh yeah.
Really.
Yeah. So when talking about regulation, I think we also have to talk about safety, right? So talk to me, how do you, I guess, include safety in the conversation of regulation? Is it about my safety? Is it about the child's safety? Or is it about fostering a safe environment? What takes priority?
So many thoughts. I think of real safety and perceived safety.
Mhm.
So if we're talking nervous system level first, our body responds before our brain processes oftentimes, because that the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response, if that's something that people have heard of before, it's a pretty common thing. Our bodies are wired for self-preservation, like I mentioned, so self-protection. And if we wait for our brain to understand what's happening, that could be literally a matter of life and death for us as humans, especially if we're thinking like back in the day. Like, I know what it was like back in the day, but we're out in the wilderness, like trying to fend off predators,
Right.
our body needs to just respond. Now, of course, having a rupture in a relationship is not synonymous to being out there in the wilderness. And the body doesn't necessarily differentiate. It just acts. There's this activation for self-preservation. There is potential perceived safety threat. I need to run, fight. I don't know what to do. I freeze, or I'm going to cave in and, do what is needed so I can stay safe through all this. So logically, safety, right? Like actual safety might be present, but if perceived safety is not present, that takes priority for us to then help establish a safe space to shift the perception into a more accurate lens of what's happening, while simultaneously offering a space for, I will say, a child in this situation to be able to process the aspects of their environment that don't feel safe. So they have a space to talk,
Right.
to play about it, and then find resources, reassurance, whatever it may be, to help them feel more of a sense of safety of their environment. So I will say that. I also thought about the therapeutic relationship and also, home, but I'm thinking from a psychologist lens that we want to establish a sense of emotional safety within the space so that kids feel like they can process what's going on, right? Let's talk about this from an adult lens, because that'll help us understand from a child and play therapy lens. If we go to a therapist and we don't feel like we can trust them, something feels off, we're not going to feel comfortable enough to talk about the things that lead us to feel really vulnerable.
Sure.
Right? Like we're just not. And so same with play. If there's something within the environment, whether it's because it's literally something in that environment or the relationship, or just their perceived sense of danger, their just general hypervigilance of, I don't know this new space, I don't know this new person, like this other thing has happened to me in my life before, like it could happen here. They're not going to be able to play with the toys in a way that is going to be therapeutically cathartic and help them work through, because they're at this constant heightened state of danger, danger, danger. So it's more so self-preservation. What can I do to protect myself versus how can I actually lean into this experience and process it more in depth through play? So those are the two main areas of where I went when you asked about safety. I have all kinds of sparks, but I'll say those are the primary directions.
Yeah, that's good.
And you talked about the flight, fight, or freeze, parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. We talk a lot about neuroscience on the podcast. And it's very good to point out that there is some situation that can assess a parent, a clinician, in terms of if that person emotionally regulated to a level that they can actually do some work, some play, some talk, depending on the situation.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that we're, again, very focused that, we talked about, meditation. We have our digital reset. We help people to really make sure that they proactively regulate their emotional and nervous system, and that they can check in periodically. And, again, even with children, we can do that at a young age to kind of help them take a pause and help their nervous system in many ways to kind of release so that they can be some work, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we definitely do a lot of stuff like that here at All. Definitely visit our website, do a digital reset yourself. Absolutely. Are there some early indicators, Rachel, when a child is playing that may suggest something emotionally is disruptive? If it's anxiety or if it's just stress related, what are some of the indicators you look out for?
Yeah. So we look at overall themes within play. I'm thinking of all kinds of things. Kids are going to naturally process their emotions through play, right? They process their thoughts, their feelings, their experiences. That's just a natural processing occurrence. When to differentiate between like normal childhood processing and problematic experiences usually tends to be more of like a hyperfixation or recurrent themes. We don't want to necessarily take one play experience in isolation, although like the information that is gleaned from the experience is insightful nonetheless. But I want to say that there have been certain times that my clients have played out a scene in a movie or a TV show, and I didn't know that. Or a time that a supervisee's client has played out a scene in a movie or a TV show, and I'm like, I know where that's from because of certain things that they're saying. And so we can look at an isolated experience and say, oh no, this is what they were processing, and this is what's going on for them. They quite literally might just be recreating something that they've seen. Lennox loves to watch dinosaurs on the screen because he transforms to a dinosaur. He embodies the dinosaur, loves that. And there are certain things that they say pretty regularly in this particular, it's on YouTube, like a YouTube channel, and he now says it all the time. He's just mimicking what he's heard, and he feels connected to it for whatever reason he does. So it is sometimes hard to differentiate between, like, is this something that is your thoughts and feelings, or is this something that you've experienced and you're just recreating it? Kids, right? Modeled behavior. We recreate the things that we've seen. So it's not always going to be this major thing happened in my life, or this, maybe not so major thing, but this stressful thing happened in my life. I'm going to play it out. It's not always so clear, especially because we're looking at themes. There's a lot of symbols. I'll go into that in just a moment. But ultimately, we want to look across the span of sessions for play therapy or just play experiences at home to really see, like, overall what's happening here. If there's a consistent theme of sadness, for example, then it might be indicative of the child struggling a bit more with sadness. If they had a bad day, or they got in trouble, or they watched something that was sad on the screen that they're recreating, they're processing that emotion. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a problem. They're just processing it. It's just like us, like, oh man, I'm sad today. Let me talk about it with my therapist or a friend or a family member, and then move forward. That's kind of some of what happens too. It's the synonyms to that talk process and the play process. But the big thing, as I was mentioning, is the themes. So overall, what are some of the general feel? Is it aggression? Is it sadness? Is it good versus evil? Is it, I'm just trying to think of something about safety. Is it exploration? We just kind of see what overall is if you could summarize this story that you're witnessing in an overarching theme or couple, what would that look like for you? And so what play therapists are learning is to assess for the themes within each session, but also across sessions. And then symbols. So symbols, ultimately all of the items within a play space, whether that be therapy or home, serve as a potential recipient of the projections that we were just talking about not long ago. So symbols mean this can represent whatever I want it to represent. Like, this could be a little peanut, or it could be a magical unicorn, or it could be a building.
Right.
It symbolizes something for the child, and children are quite imaginative. So they will find something to represent what they need it to represent. Therapists are encouraged to not name things before a child names things. So, like, I wouldn't say, here's a little peanut. We call it this and that until they name it, because if we say this is a peanut, we have now established what symbolic meaning this could mean for a child or for somebody, rather than them saying, they don't say it this way, but symbolically, this is going to represent a building for me, right? And so I'm going to have it sit there. And then if we look at it from an untrained eye and say, okay, well, how can I make sense of all this if they're not necessarily telling us what the symbols mean? We could paint a whole different picture from what we're seeing because we're attaching meaning onto it versus the kid attaching their symbolism. So hopefully this isn't getting too technical, but I will say that we want to interpret with caution, because kids aren't necessarily going to name the things that they're playing. We're viewing it from our lens, and kids aren't necessarily going to attach the same symbolic meaning to what they're doing and how they're playing. Right. So it's not always so clear. It's not always clear if, there is a psychological challenge that warrants additional attention. It really is across time, though, if you're consistently seeing it, not just in the play, but also in behaviors, in, let's say how they are functioning at home, how they're functioning at school. Oftentimes it is a combination of play, parent report, perhaps teacher report, overall experiences that can help say, oh, this makes sense a little bit more of why this is happening in the play. This could be happening because this thing that I now know of outside of the play could be impacting this experience. Okay, it makes sense that maybe there is a little extra distress here, considering what they've been through and how they're playing it out. So hopefully that answers your question. It's not always It's not.
I just wanted to add, very good information for people out there. So thanks, Rachel, for explaining, kind of looking at the themes of it as you were, mentioning how children play, and we might not interpret it as clinicians or a parent as the right thing. This reminds me of a kind of advanced therapy that I'm aware of that includes having the person that's dealing with a struggle create some kind of imaginary animals or people that will kind of help go through their emotions, right? So you can have because this goes to we talked about uncertainty, right? And also we can talk about the fact that many things that are humans are like contradiction, right? We think we're coherent and rational, but we're definitely not.
We're emotion focused creatures.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
So when there's conflicting emotions and thoughts, right, it's often useful for adults as well. Maybe not with toys. Some have also props and whatnot, but to create a situation in your mind where you have 4 or 5 different actors. And let's say you have a difficult decision in your life and you're trying to figure out, or something coming up, you're trying to figure out what parts of you are more, using the nervous system, wanting to be safe, which are more courageous and want to go and fight, which want to hide. And, how can you let them play in your mind in a fictional way so that you can resolve that? And then that affects also your neurobiology and your nervous system, right? So, again, right, things that we see from age 0 to 3 are also useful at age 60 to 90, right?
Absolutely.
I'm reflecting on my own childhood now. I'm thinking about when I was 7, and depending on the emotional climate of my house, which was really just talking about where my parents were that day, during times of conflict, I would play with my Abigail dolls, which were like baby dolls. And I would just kind of play out the mothering nurture role. And then when there were positive moments between my parents, I would play with my Legos. And I didn't make the connection until way later in my life that being creative and being brave and courageous to build something out of Legos required a positive environment. And on the other side, being negative, stressed out, and anxious required a sense of nurturing and loving support for me to feel safe.
Yeah.
So you're right. These absolutely are early symbols of our later adulthood challenges.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, for your vulnerability.
Yes.
And again, just the normalization, because I think that it just makes this conversation so much more enriching. And also, I think those who are watching, it helps everyone not feel so alone, and
Yeah.
even reflecting on past experiences and present experiences for them as well. So I just appreciate you being a beacon of light through sharing your experiences. Yeah. And I'm like, so the theme of playing with dolls, exactly as you said, is nurturance. Right? Taking care, nurturing. That would be the theme. A lot of times, like food, baby dolls, that tends to be nurturing based themes. Then there's like, playing ball or different things, more competitive. Legos, more constructive. Now there might be other themes, present depending on how the play is transpiring. And it makes me think, right, that I'm not psychoanalyzing, you're just exactly reflecting back what you were saying, that yourself probably needed more nurturance at that time, or was trying to provide that in the home. And needing to be at an emotionally regulated space to be able to construct, to build the home, to build your life, to put things together. And it makes me think, as an adult, right, when I'm having a heavy emotional experience, I can't be as present in my work as I can when I'm feeling regulated. My mental state is just not there. And so it does make sense. I need to lean more into self-care and listening to my soothing music and doing the nurturing based tasks to help me feel better so that I can move forward and be present at work. And it makes me think of burnout and all the different things, how important it is for play, or how to play to mitigate burnout. And I know that that's some of what All is doing as well, to really help, address the realities for all of us in very real ways, and helping nurture our nervous system, our minds, so that we can have balance, so that we can proceed in life in constructive ways,
Yeah.
literally, figuratively.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you both. Loving the conversation, and also wanted to point out like the real awareness that Hema had, vulnerability and awareness of, hey, let me look at this to a non-judgmental way and seeing, oh, maybe those are the patterns that had shaped me, that are shaping me. And the more we can raise that awareness with those types of conversation and with giving space for people to not feel that they will be judged or that they can express and explore, that leads to not breakthroughs necessarily, but at least steps towards more peace, more calm, more connection, more play, as we're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. All right, well, where do we pivot from here, guys?
Let's play.
Let's
Everyone, go up. Let's play.
Let's go.
I have all kinds of questions here, by the way. So, I mean, I'm down. I'm actually wondering, are there any questions so far? Would now be a time if this, you're saying not knowing where to pivot?
Yes. So
Or is there like a designated time to do that?
Definitely. There is some breaks to put out the question and answer Q&A time. So if there is some specific question from all the nice topics we've talked so far, or anything on your mind, please do so. If there's something that comes in between the Q&A, you can also ask, but we might take longer to respond. And thanks again for all the listeners and all the platform. And also if you're watching after the live, we also would love to chat with you about those topics that are fun and playful. So I wanted to give I did also some research, wanted to give a few stats as we're still talking about babies and toddlers. So 70% of the cortical wiring is done by age 3, right? So a lot of things are being done at that age. And there's a study from years ago that already talks about play is the primary mechanism to build that, right? Mm-hmm. So that was, Connell in the 50s and 60s already figured that out, right? So one other interesting fact, as we're talking about games and toys, there's a few games that don't need toys, like hide and seek and peekaboo, right? Hide and seek is a bit older, but there's another study that talks about peekaboo as neuroscience in disguise that allows both training attention, and we know in 2026 that attention is something that kids and parents are missing because they might be on certain devices and not with nice toys that we talked about. Although we can use technology, and we'll talk about technology and play a little bit later. So peekaboo trains attention, working memory, and basic self-control and executive function, right? And you can start rewiring children's brain as early as 6 months old.
Wow. That's a lot earlier than I thought. That's great.
There's a lot that happens within the first 5 years. There are monumental stages throughout life, but yeah, the first 5 years, absolutely. And the brain there's a lot of brain plasticity. So that basically means that it absorbs the world around it and is very impressionable. It might be a good way to describe that. And so kids are learning all kinds of things in a very, very rapidly, in a short period of time in the grand scheme of things.
Is there any, underrated form of children or baby play that you want to share? I also learned about unoccupied play, which is like random waving arms and all that. And I know that later unstructured play is interesting for creativity and curiosity. Mm-hmm. Any other forms of play you'd like to mention that?
Yeah, I'm thinking. So yeah, there are normal play stages for kids. And I don't remember the exact ages, but it's all like early. So there's like solitary play where kids will play by themselves, and then onlooker play where they'll observe. And this is like early, the first couple of years. And then there's parallel play. So that's what popped into my mind. So I'll come back to that. But parallel play is when you play side by side. And then there is like associative play where you're starting to connect with others, and there's competitive, and it depends as you go throughout the developmental stages, the brain and body start to naturally gravitate towards certain types of play. So that's some of what you were just discussing. But I'm thinking about parallel play, or like a lot of times, or even solitary play, right? Where there is this pressure of like, I need to jump in and I need to be present, or even if you don't jump and be present and like, okay, it's fine. They're playing by themselves and like, I'm completely away. We need to find a balance, right? Like we need to find a balance where there is an adult present. Play therapy is all about, I see you, I hear you, I'm here with you. So a child might be engaging in solitary play, or I might be engaging in parallel. So parallel is we work side by side. I don't know if I actually defined that, but I'm doing my thing, they're doing their thing, we're in the same space together. Solitary, again, the child's just playing by themselves. Presence still is super important, even if they're doing their own thing or you're doing your own thing alongside of them. And I think something that is often missed is the importance of the presence within that space.
Right.
So I think maybe that might be my answer to your question.
Yeah. Thank you. Because from, my understanding, about 10 years ago, the thought was that children, and of course it depends on the age and the maturity and all that, but was about, needing about the same amount of time for solitary play, and then for playing with other children of same, younger or older age. And it's good to, it's very good to understand that children are learning better if they play with older and younger, because they can learn and teach, right? If they play only with the same age, which is one of the problems of our education system. We had a podcast last week about education, which we talked about play. And one of the theory we looked at, Waldorf, saying that he mentioned that according to research, children should not learn math, arithmetics, and language at school until 7 years old, because they should do more play. Right? So
building blocks, right? That makes complete sense.
So yeah, so my ancient knowledge, I'm the fossil that we're talking about, the inventor of the things, was that it's about roughly a third play solitary, play with other kids, and then play with adults, because you need to also learn from the grown-ups. Is that something that you see in practice or would like to update?
Yeah, I'm thinking about my son. So we'll just talk parent to parent now. So we're balanced in this household when it comes to, toys, digital toys, and what I refer to as like traditional toys. So stay tuned for that conversation, and we'll get into technology in a little bit. He loves, as I was mentioning, to watch a couple different YouTube families. They're a little older than him. So actually, most of the kids, their families, there's usually a child that's around his age, and we'll refer to the video by the youngest, by his same age peer. Funny enough, I think I started that. I don't know why I felt pulled to. So I guess that's on me, not him, in naming that. But ultimately, it's so interesting you say that, because I'm like, yeah, he does seem to connect more to the youngest in what he's doing. But then there's the older kids. So he gets that. I mean, it's not just screens. I'm just thinking about one example. He also plays with others outside of our home. And then there's adults, there's me, there's, his family, his nanny. And then I'm even thinking some of the videos that he likes to watch also are babies. And he will say baby, he goes gaga goo goo. So it's so interesting. Like even in the digital realm, that's something that is just naturally transpired. And I didn't think of it this way until you actually started to name it, which is why my brain went to him, just thinking about the different interactions and how he does seem to interact differently depending on who's on the screen. And by interact differently, I mean his level of engagement. He's very expressive with his face. So I pay a lot of attention. I'm not like observing him like a psychologist. I notice things. I'm present with him in that experience. Like if there is solo play or parallel play, I'm still very much present in seeing like what his reactions are and what he's doing. And I just care. That's something I love to do. I love to pay attention to that. So to streamline what I'm trying to say though, it's so interesting because a lot of times he'll play alongside of them, like the parallel play where he'll get the different the different methods, digital and in person, and then the different ages, digital and in person, and how it's interesting. He does seem to balance all of that, and he plays alongside. So he loves cars and dinosaurs. Cars was his first special interest. Dinosaurs is his new special interest. And he likes to watch families that play with dinosaurs. That's really the main focus. But he will embody the dinosaur and he'll play alongside of them. So it's just interesting. I guess I'm going into more details than maybe are needed. But me making sense of it as you're saying that, yeah, it does make a lot of sense. Now, in practice, I'm not noticing it as much. A lot of times we do, like if there's a group, we try to have the same age group. Just for like a social skills group, let's say, because it makes sense. You want to be able to connect with your peers in a certain space when you're learning developmentally what's normal during those stages, and you're all kind of going through the same types of things. So I'm not noticing it as much in my own practice, but I can very much see that with just observing Lennox's play.
It's interesting that representation plays such a critical role. If he's playing with a car versus a dinosaur, he's still actually looking for the structure of family in both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fascinating to me. As a parent, I don't associate cars to be personified as mother, father kind of thing. But in his mind, he's slowly identifying those roles. And for him, it's absolutely possible that you could have a mother car and a father car.
Oh, yeah, spot on. Spot on. And part of that, he really loves cars, Disney Pixar cars.
The movie, yeah.
Yes. And so like they are personified, which also
exactly
makes it a little bit easier for him. But it's interesting. They'll pop on the screen and he'll play with them. No joke. We were just watching Cars yesterday. Dinosaurs were all on the table and Cars. He literally was just like clearing off the space. And as soon as Mac, which is the big Mac truck, pops on the screen, he was like, "Where's Mac?" And and he put it, and then he's like playing, watching. But yeah, it's so interesting. Then he'll grab like several of the characters that are in relationship or that have relationships. So very interesting. Yeah, see, just when you pay attention to your child's play, just what do you notice?
Right.
It doesn't have to be a right or wrong or you figuring it out or knowing all the things, because honestly, we're not going to. And that's something that's hard for a lot of play therapists is we're not always going to know what's going on. Mm-hmm. However, we trust the process and we know how inherently therapeutic play is, right, and how children have it within themselves to work through their challenges in a safe space with tools that allow them to communicate in a way that aligns with them. And we allow that process to unfold. It is not up to us as adults to say, this is only going to be a valid therapeutic experience, or you're only going to have a helpful play experience if I perceive it from my lens. As long as the child gets what they need out of it, it doesn't really matter what we perceive. We want to know, right? We want to know what's going on with the kids. We want to know where their brain and bodies are at in that time. We want to know what they're processing, how we can help. Absolutely. And we're not going to know every single play experience, but being able to notice things such as what we're talking about here. Like I'm even thinking, interesting, I didn't think about it that way. Or, oh yeah, this is what he's doing now. And I wonder if some of you who are listening now are also thinking about some of these experiences or other experiences for your kids and just enhancing your understanding about their play experiences.
Right. Yeah.
Amazing. I suggest that we switch a little bit to the technological side.
Yes. What a great natural transition here.
Yeah. Have done a lot, not talking too much about technology, but technology is here. And then, there is this study that talks about gaming. So we're talking about older kids and adults. I know a lot of older kids. I won't name members of my family that are still gaming till 2 a.m. But there are.
Flow state.
Deep flow state, exactly.
Whoa, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I didn't know.
No time limits around deep flow.
Play therapy till very, very old. So there is this study, if you want to put on the screen, from 2022, and this confirms finding from 2014, that there is some synchronicity interbrain with online gaming cooperatively, right? So the idea is, and by the way, this is Wigstrom et al. In Neuropsychology 2022, and I took some time to look at the study. Maybe you've seen it. You want to maybe talk about it first, Rachel?
I love that you bring this up because I actually referenced this in a chapter that I wrote on
Right.
it was in a VR book, MHVR, mental health virtual reality book, and I wrote the chapter on the reality of human virtual connections. So it's so interesting that you found this as well. From what I recall, because it's been a little bit since I've looked at the details, but ultimately, two people were entered, and correct me because it seems like you probably read it more recently, and I want to be accurate.
No worries.
What I gathered, what has left an imprint in my brain is that there were two people engaging in a task, but they were not communicating outside of this space. I think they were in separate rooms, if I'm remembering correctly.
That's correct. Yeah.
And they had EEGs hooked up to their brain, so it was measuring their brain patterns and the function of what was happening in their brain. And they found that the players engaging in a task together, but in separate spaces and not talking, their brains sunk up. Their EEGs were aligned, from what I can remember. But I will pause now. Sure that I'm getting accurate information.
Good memory. So again, that's very interesting finding, because the idea is that we are better at synchronizing. So, you've heard the stories and the science that roommates, women will have the same menstrual cycle, brainwave will synchronize, people will start mimicking each other using the same words, right? So we're a human social species, so we tend to synchronize many things, including our brainwaves, right? So this study was trying to figure out if that can happen in different rooms, which means also in different countries, right? So right now we're all in different locations, and we can synchronize our thoughts because we're doing something together, right? So it might be, we're talking about gaming, but it also might be about work also, right? So how can we create more interbrain synchronization if you're working with a remote team, right? So we're working with, for instance, HR departments and remote teams to help them figure out how do you keep that human connection in a virtual world, right? And we'll talk about virtual play a little bit later, right? So very interesting study, because it confirms there's two studies now that says that it is possible to synchronize. But it doesn't mean, I have to be very careful when we talk about the study. It doesn't mean that any teenager can say to their parents, hey, I saw Rachel, Chris, and Hema said that we can go and play video games and it's fine, right? It's just as good as playing outside.
Free fall now.
Yeah.
Yes, and
right.
Yes, and right? So, a few things that we have to understand is that this was designed, right? So it's not a video game that exists that maybe was designed by companies to have other purpose than cooperation and brain synchrony, right? So this was designed, which we hope that we can design things that create synchrony. At all, we're also developing AIs and tech for good and for connection, right? So we can use tech, and we'll talk about play therapy and what Rachel has been doing, that we can create those technology that will increase synchronization and the connection. So the premise was that interbrain synchrony increase social closeness, rapport, agreement, joint agency, similar flow states that we talked about a little bit before, sense making, meaning making, and cooperation, right? So we know that does that in general, and that normally happens in the same room. Then there were some studies that showed that it can happen in the same room if you're playing video games, right? So two people playing video games together, and they can have synchrony of their brain. Now, this study was the second to say if it's possible outside. And it was designed with things in mind. So if you are a video game designer or an AI designer or something that wants to create connection instead of disconnection, there's a few things that we have to think about if we want to design those. So one is that one of the reasons that it worked, it was designed, like the hypothesis was that attention, interaction, and cooperation in real time would work if there had to be a coordination of tasks, right? So it's not two people doing separate things in the video game. It was actually very specific tasks. And it was that you're talking about cars, right? So in the video games, there's a car, and one of the person has to steer, and the other one has to press the pedal, right? So very important, and we can take out the reference if people have not read it. You can find that online. Hopefully, if you have access to some research papers, and what's really important is that this also reminds us of real life experience, right? So, what are some of the games that we play? Have you ever played with your children or others where someone is blindfolded and the other one has to lead, right? So those are kind of cooperation where you need to work in synchrony to make something happen. So when you create game and gaming environment, apparently this study shows that actually increase the synchrony. Now, there's also a few other caveats that we need to mention about the study. One is that the synchronization did decrease over time, right?
Mm.
It's not forever, right? You will have decreased breath rate, and the hypothesis reason is that because video games are like high workload states, that after a while it's kind of just too much, and especially the beta waves and a bit of the theta waves lose synchrony with time. And then one other interesting finding was that high emotion inducing video also increased the synchronization, right? So if you're doing something fun and driving around in a nice city, that's fun. If there's people dying, crashing, fire, like anything emotional, will make that bad. And that's another study that I found talked about 30 minutes of violent video games immediately lowered prefrontal activity, right? So
30 minutes. That's
that
it.
yeah, so emotions, especially negative emotions, can decrease thoughts, cognition, and also synchronization. So just a few things that I found interesting about the study, but it does show that technology can be used for good. So that ties into our next topic, which is how do you use technology in play, Rachel?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Digital play.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, this is the play of the digital native child,
Mm-hmm.
right? And a digital native is a person who has grown up, only knows a world, I should say, but also has grown up, but only knows a world where there is technology. So that is the modern method of play, a modern method, not the, I should say, a modern method of play. And so, yeah, I can go on. I'll wait for more specific questions, but this is the way of the world. Is my short answer. You're
Mm-hmm.
giving a short answer for once.
Great. Well, I mean, we just talked about it, and I think it's kind of always at all. We talk a lot about digital wellness. We talk about many things, neurodiversity, emotional regulation. But when we talk about digital wellness
Yeah.
and balance, we always say we're not against technology, we're not against social media, we're not against video game. It's only about designing an environment and an awareness around it, and making sure that we're doing it with intention,
Yes.
that we know what we're doing, and that we have attention that can sometimes be stolen from us if we don't know what we're doing, right?
Yeah. We want to
So-
have healthy digital citizenship. Sorry, I think
Yeah.
I spoke
No,
prematurely.
no, go ahead.
Yeah, like we want to have healthy digital citizenship ourselves, and we want to help our children establish healthy digital citizenship, which is really being a citizen online that is kind and aware and insightful and intentional
Yeah.
with how we're navigating these spaces. And what I see often is a moral panic stance where what that means is, this is bad, we're going to push it away, which oftentimes, anytime anything new is introduced to our human collective, it is oftentimes met with reluctance because it activates the nervous system, exactly as we talked about before. And our body is not going to differentiate. This is bad. This is potential danger. I'd rather push it away
Mm-hmm.
than lean in because I don't want there to be any chance of any potential danger.
Right.
And we are doing a disservice to ourselves and our children and future generations if we don't lean in and say, how can we help children and ourselves navigate these spaces in healthy, balanced, intentional ways? And so, yes, that is something that is super duper important when it comes to anything digital technology, right? Wellness, play, general interaction. Our lives are so inundated with the online platforms in every facet of life, really, right? From school to going to the grocery store to having fun, right? Like just anything in our life is, comes back to digital platforms in one way, shape, or another, generally speaking. So how can we find a way to navigate it rather than pushing it away? And that's very much my mindset within the play therapy field. Is this is an inevitable space that we're in. I very much believe that the digital era is a cognitive evolution for our collective. And it's important for us to figure out how we can healthily navigate this evolution and lead with purpose and intention. I love that word. I'm going to keep coming back to it because it really is about being intentional. And if we say you can't go online, or you can't play this game, or you can't press this button, we'll say kids are going to say, okay, well, I'm going to find a way. If you tell me how to do it, I'm going to put this red button here. I literally have a red button over there that says no or on, depending on where you look at it. It's a no button, right? No, don't press it. They're going to press it. So instead of saying no, don't press it, how can I integrate this into our life in a way that's healthy and intentional?
I don't know if you have a patient example or a case study example where you were able to pivot a parent that's coming from the place of, I'm eliminating all digital devices entirely. I think technology is a detriment to mental health. I'm in the camp of no. It's actually a hard no in a lot of cases. Do you have any just personal experience of how you pivoted that parent to be more intentional, to be more alert and stay relevant, because technology is here, whether we like it or not?
Absolutely. I'm going to start from a place of compassion, right? Every family is different. Every family has different balance and rules and, regulations and expectations and all the things. Absolutely lean into what's going to be best for you and your family. And we want to find the balance. What are your kids doing? What are their peers doing? How does this impact them, what they're doing, what their peers are doing, and if there's any potential disconnect here? How are you modeling being on screen, right? Do as I say, not as I do. All these things. We just want to be mindful about all of that. So I want to start by saying it's going to depend. I do really lean into where families are, and I respect the balance that they establish for their lives. Having said that, from a mental health standpoint, if a parent brings a child who is struggling on screens from their perspective and says, I don't want you to be on screens, I find that to synonymous to someone bringing in a child that says, my child is depressed, but they're too depressed. I don't want you to talk about it here. Therapy is the place to process the problems, right?
Right.
I also think it's important for us to put this into perspective. We generally meet with kids 1 hour a week, give or take. But let's just say 1 hour a week. We're just going to say a standard 4-week month. I work with kids 4 hours a month. That is a half of a workday a month, which is impactful. I'm not saying this to minimize the amount of time. It is an impactful support. And I recognize if there are problems outside of sessions, then I'm going to lean in and support parents in finding ways to implement balance and regulations and parental controls and whatever else is needed for me to support them and their family, while simultaneously allowing the space in therapy for a child to play in a way that aligns with them, because it's going to help me glean insight into what they are so drawn to in this space. There was a child that was constantly coming to session. I'll keep this super vague, but coming to session wanting to play the same themes of games, which is muscle building. Like they literally become into a game. I'm a twig. I'm this little mini twig, and I have to like lift a rock or something. I forget exactly what it was, but it was like a tiny little object to like gain my strength. And so when you start your little twig, but then you can like work your way up to being these big giants, and you can stomp on all the little creatures. And all of the games had some type of building strength, becoming powerful, and like the differentiation between these like giants and these ants, basically, right? And so the parents saying, on screens too much, like we need to stop this. And I don't want to incorporate this. I don't want this to be, part of session, like talk to them about their challenges. And what I learned was they had a lot of developmental delays, physical delays, and felt very out of place within their family to a certain extent and within their peer group. And that is what the way I interpreted the feedback that the parents gave, the insight, the insight from the game, the insight from the situations that were occurring. That's how I made sense of what was happening. So these types of games, which were all the same, they were different, but they were all to the core the same. And I noticed that a lot kids tend to play very similar theme games, by the way. Not all the time, but I noticed that a lot in sessions. And these were the only spaces seemingly that this child really felt strength and ability that either was within their developmental stage or surpassed their developmental stage. Why would you not want to be on the screen feeling the sense of empowerment and control and, I am finally able to do something? Yeah, it makes sense why you don't want to leave this space, because you're going to get off of this game and you're going to feel poorly about yourself, comparing yourself to everyone else. So had I not had all of these experiences, just leaning into these games and finding out what the themes were in across sessions, it was pretty consistent, the same type of play. It's clearly suggested to me that this child needed more spaces off screen and on screen, but off screen, that allowed them to feel a sense of empowerment and strength and control, and that they added up to those who were in their peer group. Right. And I've had several different experiences, not where parents have necessarily stepped in. This parent was a little more apprehensive with incorporating digital technologies, but back to the themes, I noticed I work with a client who's very anxious. All of our games different, but all of them are rooted in anxiety and fear-based themes. It's interesting. Again, that's not always, but what is your child playing and how are they playing it? And being able to lean in sessions, but also leaning in with your child, engaging in co-play.
Right.
And seeing what is it that they're exposing themselves to just say, oh, they're on the screens too much, and this is a problem, and I don't want this. How much do you know about what your child is doing? Because that's honestly half of the battle sometimes. The amount of times that a parent expresses challenge with their children on screens and is expressing some type of apprehension, trepidation about digital play in sessions and outside of sessions. I ask, how aware are you of what's really going on the screen? And most of the time they have no idea.
Yeah.
And very good point. We also talk about this a lot, intention, and also, are you doing it in a social activity, right? We looked at the study, are you playing video game with someone or in a different room, or there's different types of screen. I give the example sometimes of my son. He was very young, maybe 9 or 10. And we ended up watching, not in one sitting, but we ended up in a few weeks watching a 10-hour black and white Japanese movie, a classic that, and then we critically talked about it. And right. So it was screen time. It's a movie. It's not as bad as sure. Oh, by the way, you think a kid can watch a 10-hour movie now? They can't watch 10 seconds on TikTok, right? But but the point is that if you're doing an activity with the child, or it can also be with your loved one. It can be with doing something. And sometimes people go in parties and use their cell phone to play board games, right? And they have these things and they use the cell phone, but they're smiling, they're there, right? So technology is not bad per se, it's how you use it, right? And
absolutely.
A lot of what you said, I agree that it's is it co-play, or is it, or are you interested in what's the use case? Why is your child using that? Are you engaged, right? And it's not just don't do that. Not, it's well, there is a reason. And yes, there is more than 90% of U.S. children that are playing video games, right? So if your kid is feeling left out, well, my kid played video games. I wasn't too happy at first. He even made a YouTube channel about his video streaming his video games. But okay, there was a communication, there were some limits, but more there was understanding the intention, and also creating content is different than consuming, and right. So there's a lot of things that can go into learning, but I was involved. I understood what game he was playing, why, how, why he was posting, right? So
it's the insight, it's the perceived insight, right? Because ultimately it is coming from our lens, but the more that you are in this space with your child or your partner or whoever it may be, your friends, your family, the more connected you are to the actual experience. It makes me think the amount of times now that Lennox wakes up in the morning and one of the first things he says is watch dinosaurs. And so from an outsider's perspective, I could see there being the thought, oh, he's addicted to the screen. He wakes up and the first thing he says is watch dinosaurs. We need to stop that. Me knowing him and being present in the space, what I hear him say is, Mom, I want to play dinosaurs. Like you wake up so excited that you want to play dinosaurs because two things. One, watching YouTube is actually a modern method of play. As odd as that sounds, it is. In 2019 and the surrounding years, the most popular or highest paid or both YouTuber was Ryan from Ryan's World. His whole channel was unboxing and playing with toys. That's saying a lot. If you are tippy top of the YouTube food chain for several years and your whole thing is opening and playing with toys, there's something to say for that. So that's one thing. But the biggest thing for me is I see that he immediately becomes the dinosaur. He doesn't go and sit on the couch and just stare. Ever since he's been young, he moves his mouth, he moves his eyes. I even had him, I signed him up for a couple studies through Yale University, and there is like an infant early childhood. I forget the exact term of the lab. Sorry. But there is a lab and they're doing virtual studies with pre-verbal children and observing the way, like what they're looking at. Like, I don't know all the specifics behind the scene. I had to keep my eyes closed because I wasn't, I had him on my lap, but I couldn't have any facial expressions that would have impacted the research. So I'm not really fully sure. I was able to like peek a little bit. He told me I could. But I'm just saying that there's a lot that's coming out with like moving on screens. Anyways, I'm kind of venturing.
You were playing peekaboo, but half.
I was playing while he was playing. Exactly. But yeah, so I think it's one thing to just conceptualize, to make sense of the digital platform as a modern method of play, even though us as adults don't necessarily view it in the same way. We play differently. And again, when we lean in, we can have more clarity as to what's actually happening. I didn't just hear, I want to go and stare at a screen all day. I heard the first thing I want to do today is I want to play dinosaurs. And we turn it on and I'm telling you, he roar, it is so cute. And so he parallel plays alongside of the actual dinosaurs, which is so interesting because he doesn't mimic the kids in these videos. He mimics the dinosaurs. He becomes the dinosaur. So anyways, I just want to say that like, just because a kid says something or you see that they're engaging in screens, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's important for us to gain insight. And then if it is unhealthy use, or if they're getting something on the screen that they're not getting off the screen, that's when further intervention and balance is necessary. And when there are bigger tantrums of removing, if you're getting this sense of power and control and safety and empowerment and connection on screen that you're not getting off screen, it's not the screen that's the issue.
Right.
It's perceived as the issue from an outsider's lens.
Yeah.
The real issue is I'm not getting my needs met to the degree that I need to get them met off screen. And I don't know that as a kid, and I don't know how to communicate that, but I know I'm gravitating towards this because I feel really connected to it and it's serving a purpose for me. So let's not push it aside and just say this is bad, but what purpose is this serving? How healthy and balanced is this? Do we need adjustment? Do I need to step in more? Would it be helpful for me to engage in some co-play? And are there other opportunities that we need to offer you off screen to help you find more intention in what you're doing in your life and what you're receiving in your life?
Right. Put those same themes in a traditional toy or off-site kind of approach. I like that.
Or even like organized sports, right? Like, are there, for the example I use, is there an organized sports opportunity for children with differing physical abilities, right? And that's something that they were looking for as well. But that's just an example, right? Then, okay, then how can you have these other areas, either through toys or through other methods of play?
Yeah. But what about, sorry, Christian, go ahead.
Yeah, and sport is a form of play. The only thing is that we have to be careful because it doesn't provide the unstructured play, right? So it has rules, and right, so it is play, but we have to also create some unstructured play. I also wanted to kind of chime in terms of having the ability to to see the child in the environment and seeing, right? So clearly the YouTube was just a proxy for him to play, right? It could have been
Mhm.
any other thing. And sometimes content, especially YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, hope this content is educational, right? So there is some good content.
YouTube University.
Yeah, yeah.
It is.
Welcome. Welcome
At
to
this point.
our course on play on YouTube University.
Right. Great.
And so yeah, we cannot just demonize, and there is some good use case as we're doing and talking about of technology of social media content, and we can say in general that if it's kind of a short video, there's a lot of study that shows that short video are not as good as long form like we're doing, 2 hour. If you stayed up, this is like practicing your attention, having cognitive load, interacting, right? So these types of content are actually helpful, whereas, and maybe not as helpful as reading a book, maybe it depends, right? But very close. And also, if you're having direct videos like we're having, and especially for children, if you have family abroad, there's a lot of people, different cities, different countries. It's great to video chat with your uncle, your cousin, your family. There's no problem with that because there's an intention, and then there's real interaction, right? The
Yeah.
problem is if they're using this, and we talked about this, and that's why also as has been in the forefront of this digital balance for years, we also see and knew from the start, as we're in neuroscience and psychology, that it's just for first, the screen time is not indicative. It's the quality of time and the intention, and then even that, we know that ad blockers don't work. Parents that tell no doesn't work. We've interviewed people that tell us that for 2 years I was sneaking in and found the password, or we heard stories of people finding the Wi-Fi neighbor when the parents cut the Wi-Fi, right? So
Oh yeah.
you can try, but kids are smarter than
Oh,
you
yeah.
think, and probably smarter than you. But
They are.
We
Where
were
there's a
those
will,
kids.
there's a way.
yeah, exactly.
And they're steps ahead. They are not in the spaces that adults are in. They're steps ahead.
Right.
Exactly. So it's really to kind of create this environment where you can have those discussion, and then there is regulation, and there's also this holistic approach. Whereas, well, we know that ADHD people diagnosed have more addictive behavior, and vice versa. If you use more of the screen, you might create more ADHD or ADD type symptoms. So there's comorbidity. There is depression that's linked to screen time, and it's a whole approach that if you're not emotionally regulated, then you use your phone as emotional regulation. Parents, if there's one thing that we can tell parents that's pretty universal, is don't use your technology as a pacifier, right?
Yeah.
So if that's the way that you treat your child to emotionally regulate, instead of being there and co-regulating and being there, then that's definitely detrimental. Besides that, there's a lot of other nuance. But again, it's the problem is not the technology, is that it's an easy access to regulate. And
Yes.
as any psychologists know, everything is adaptive at one time, right? So that behavior, because it was useful at that time, and then it become maladaptive, it's continuing, right? So we have to be very vigilant to model, as you mentioned, and to have this constant communication on how to address those things.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about teletherapy, digital play? I'm for over a decade, way before the lockdown. And by the way, during the lockdown, I love board games. So during the lockdown, there was a board game store that had a Zoom board game night.
Oh my gosh.
Right? So using technology to play board
fun.
game, and yeah.
That's fantastic. I bet there were a lot that were doing that during the lockdown.
So play is good at any age, as we talked about. So yeah, for many years I've been proponent of digital health in general, digital mental health. We know that especially if there's no medication, in the clinical setting, therapy, coaching, a lot can be done virtually. Sometimes you have better care because you have a wider net of just your whatever 50 kilometers or 30 miles that you're willing to drive to find the proper person. And we know that we can assess people even if you're a therapist, a clinician online. I've taken some course on that, and the telehealth is quite nice. But people might wonder, how do you do digital play? How does that work?
Got sparks, all kinds of thoughts. So I'll answer your question, then give an example with Lennox, because that's just sitting close to my heart right now in a really lovely way. So I will say there's virtual play therapy and digital play therapy. Virtual play therapy is the teletherapy, is meeting with kids online, and digital play therapy is incorporating digital technologies in session. So maybe incorporating VR or a Switch, any console, or online platforms, online play spaces, things like that. So I just say that because if I say virtual and digital, like they're pretty synonymous, but that's how it's differentiated within the field. So teleplay therapy, virtual therapy, telemental health play, all the same, just different ways to say the same thing. So I actually had started incorporating virtual play minimally, but before the pandemic as well. I had a teen client who actually would play on their console, and they would turn their phone around and they would show their screen of what they were playing while we talked. This was before we were able to actually join in this, or maybe not before we were able to, before I realized the capabilities of joining in this space. What the pandemic really illuminated, honestly, and made way more possible, like you were saying, things started to emerge because it was needed. So, teletherapy, virtual play is, it's very effective for those who it's effective for. Now, I will say I own a group private practice, a thriving multi-location practice. A lot of clients do actually want to come in person. We have some clinicians that are fully virtual, some clinicians that are fully in person, and a lot do a hybrid. I'm fully virtual now. And I will say this is the connection to Lennox too, but one clinician in particular, who's absolutely fantastic, Dr. Victoria Kennedy Atkins. She actually, Lennox loves to play with her, not for for therapy or anything. Just he literally will wake up and watch Dinosaur. He also will say Victoria Lennox space, because we do virtual therapy, or not virtual therapy, excuse me. Sorry, we're on the virtual platform, and there are filters in the some of the different platforms, and they just play with the filters. They're just playing. Oftentimes I'm meeting with her for meetings, and he'll join for a few moments, but he loves it so much. And I say this because he's 2.5, and he feels so connected to her on the screen. And all they're doing is playing with the filters and laughing. And he joined a meeting right before we jumped on here, where Dr. Victoria was on the call, and there were 2 other people in the meeting. It was all part of the team, and they were playing back and forth. It was so cute. And he kept, I watched his eyes. He'd look at her, and then he'd change things. So it's a lot of connection. But I bring this up because it's similar-ish to what you were just saying about connecting with family members. When the connection is there, the virtual platform is just another method of therapy. Now, of course, there has to be alignment. Some people are I don't want to be on screen, or there's not really much privacy at home, and I don't know how to create a private space, or there's different needs and different preferences. And Dr. Victoria specializes in working with young kids. And pretty much all of her clients are young. Now, not necessarily 2.5, although she has worked with kids young like that. But I just want to say it absolutely can be done. And with therapy, with play therapy, it's really all about the relationship. And when there's a solid relationship, you can still connect even if you're not physically present, because you're present in a different manner.
Yeah.
And how play can be done that way is you can engage in digital play on the screen. So there are different play therapy rooms that we utilize at my practice. So there's Play Space, Hopscotch, Teleo. There's all kinds of different ones, but those are some of the ones that I am connected with and we utilize and we love. And so that sometimes they're just in these spaces and they play with what's available in these spaces. Sometimes A kid will play with an item on their end, like a physical, tangible, traditional toy. And then I have all kinds of toys in here. I have a unicorner over there, all my unicorns.
The unicorner.
I get a shout out to my husband for naming that. I was like, why is that so clear? Why did I not call it a unicorner? It's literally what it is. It's in the corner of the room. Like, that's perfect.
I want a unicorner.
Yeah. Now I feel like I have to show you all. I can't just tell you about the unicorner and not show you.
You gotta show us.
You show.
Gosh.
You gotta show.
But I also have like a little miniature sand tray here, and I have all kinds of things. Here, let me turn the light on here too, so you can see. So this is my unicorner. Come back to it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
There's even a picture at the end.
Oh yeah, my best friend's kiddo made that unicorn picture for me, and yeah, it's my unicorn. I have weighted unicorns. And that's a 4-foot unicorn. So, and sorry, let's get a full picture of the whole unicorn.
That's perfect.
So sometimes I might grab toys. Oh, I have my little Pooh Bear section, and I even have digital tools. So I have my Switch, I have my headset. I'll show you. This is for Lennox because obviously
cars, yes.
Obviously.
Lightning McQueen has to be there.
I have a little sand tray area, and actually this is a tray that Lennox made for me. He just leaves trays in here. Okay, no, he does not make it for me. Let me say that. That is my own stuff. I like to pretend that he makes it for me. He just comes and plays. That's what he does.
Own it, Rachel.
So this was my inner child playing a couple months ago, and McDonald's had all these special toys, and I made it a point to connect my inner child. I won't get into the details of that, but yeah, so sometimes I might just bring toys into the space. Sometimes kids will bring toys into the space. Sometimes it might be where a child screen shares and they're just playing on their end in digital play. Sometimes they encourage me to do certain things on my end. So there's all kinds of different methods, but ultimately virtual is just a different method of obtaining treatment. And then digital, usually it's just not a replacement, because it's not replacing, it's an additive, but it's a different method to engaging in some of what the traditional play therapy tools may be. So I'll leave it at that. I can expound further in any direction that's helpful, but I'll just leave it at that.
No, I think that's really, really good stuff, Rachel, because sometimes we don't understand it until we see it visually. And now when we say sandbox, our viewers can understand, what does that mean? I'm going to come from the camp of, we have a parent who has a strict avoidance to devices. They learn the research. Maybe they even incorporate what we're learning today. And they're ready to start co-playing and being more engaged in their child's behaviors. But honestly, there might just be a barrier to start. Something as simple as, how do you teach a parent how to play?
Meet your kids where they are. Your kids want to tell you what they love, what's important to them, and what they love to do. Meet your kids there. They want to be the expert. They want to have power and control. It's so funny. I'm trying to plug my computer in. There we go. It's so funny because I think about different memes that have emerged on social media over time about this topic of, oh my gosh, if my child talks about Minecraft one more time,
right? Exactly.
I'm talking about Roblox. I can't handle it anymore. Kids love that. They love that. Even if you don't feel comfortable leaning in through digital play, have them share all the things that are important for them in this digital space. That is a method of digital play, is by having, if they're at the developmental stage where they do engage in verbal discussions, have them share what they love, what they're doing. They want to do that. And I think a lot of times you're like, oh, I saw something recently, someone posted like, I'm really having a hard time like staying present and focused on this. I just find this boring. And like, that's okay. You're going to find things boring. Like, there's going to be stuff that I love to do. And you're like, oh gosh, I would never, right? And maybe vice versa. Like, we all have different preferences in our play types, like just in traditional play, but also digital play. Right. I love cozy games. I'm the resource person. I don't like the first person shooter games myself, but like, that's just my own preference. So it's okay that you might not align. Lean into what your child is doing so you can gain insight and awareness and connection. And then maybe you can venture into spaces and encourage that your child venture into those spaces too, as long as they're, of course, appropriate, because I know that sometimes adults may play adult games.
Right.
But yeah, it's all about where your child is. Start there.
So when I have a parent that says, I have never played Nintendo, I know nothing about video games, but my kids are obsessed, you're saying it's not about knowing how to play the game. It's not about knowing what the controller does. It's
No.
about just sitting and kind of watching them teach you about the game.
Yes.
Maybe tell you about their character. Like, why did they choose a unicorn/swan character? You know, just that level of curiosity can bridge the connection.
I feel that so strongly. I'm like, yes, that is yes. I need a yes button that I can press now.
Yes, we need a yes button. That's what we
Yes,
need.
man, absolutely. So I think that a common misconception. So let me back up. I train a lot of therapists on incorporating digital technologies into play therapy practice. I've done a lot of writing. I feel very confident. I lead the way. I suck at so many games.
Yes.
I train other play therapists. I name it very clearly. You all do not need to know all the things there are to know about all of the things. It's just not going to be possible. Because also different kids play different ways. I'm going to come back to this in a second. What is important for your child? That's what matters. What they want to teach you, that's what matters. Knowing the ins and outs doesn't necessarily matter. No. And also, we don't want to be the experts in a space where they're the experts. We're
right.
Style. They want to be in charge. That's
so
important for them. But yeah, it's so interesting. I was playing Minecraft. I suck at Minecraft. Okay. I'm really bad. Like embarrassingly bad. Like I tried to walk up a what's it called? Hill. I don't know. I think it was like now, granted, I'm a little bit better. There's different devices. So when I was on my Switch, I could not figure it out. I was so embarrassed. I thought I was playing in session. I thought I was going to upset my client because I'm like, I can't even move from the space. Like, you're not going to even want me to enter into this game anymore. But the fact that I was there, showing up authentically, trying, they seemingly really appreciated that. And also, how great for a child who's constantly they constantly usually probably perceive themselves. I don't want to say probably usually because I don't want to name it for all kids and perceive themselves as the small person in the room, the least capable, right? Oh, they're smarter than me. Adults know more than me. For me to model to them, one, you know more than I do here. That's empowering. How they can see that when you enter into new situations, how to navigate it in healthy, balanced ways. Right? If a child is struggling with learning something and is acting out in school because they feel perhaps they feel like their peers are viewing them in a negative way, how embarrassing that is. I'm going to act out. So I'd rather I get in trouble for my behaviors than get, made fun of for not knowing something. And they come to therapy with me and I'm like, oh, I don't know how to navigate this space. And like, man, I feel like I'm letting the team down and I feel embarrassed. And I'm naming some of the things that they might be feeling, which is intentional. Not that they are necessarily feeling that way, but I'm naming it regardless. Kids are constantly learning and growing. They're constantly being stretched. They're constantly unsure. They're learning so much in school. Their brains are growing. For me to say, hey, I can be in this space and navigate it and not know and have my doctorate and be training people in digital play and I have no idea how to navigate this space. I want you to lead me. I want you to show me the way. And it's not about me. It's about the process. Right? That ultimately kids want a sense of power, control, autonomy to be able to work through their challenges. They have the power within themselves to work through their challenges. They just need the supportive spaces and people to help them do so. Right. So I'm going to come back to what I was saying about different kids play games different ways. I was playing Minecraft that we've already established I'm not good at. Okay. You all are a good company. This is normal. I wanted to find diamonds. And so they told me like you dig and you dig and you dig and you dig and you get to a certain level in Minecraft and you find diamonds. Cool. So the whole session, we literally just dug in the same space, just kept digging and digging and digging. Didn't end up getting to a place where we found diamonds. Therapeutic nonetheless, right? We worked really hard collaboratively toward a goal that they wanted to attain. Even if we didn't attain it, we continued to work towards it. And, whatever that provided for them, I may not know, but that was something that they needed at that time and space. I'm confident of that. Right. Another client around the same time comes in, wants to play Minecraft and find diamonds. And I'm like, yes, I know how to find diamonds now.
Finally, I can.
Yes, I am the master of Minecraft. Hooray. And all my clients know that I'm not good at these spaces, but that I show up and I try and I learn and I read. And so I was like, I know how to find diamonds. I was so excited. And they were excited too. And they're like, well, how do you find diamonds? Because, you suck at Minecraft. And I told them, and they said, you never find diamonds that way. And I was like, oh, silly me. I don't find diamonds. See, I'm not good at Minecraft. How do you find diamonds? They say you have to find a cave. You go in through the cave and you find diamonds that way. And it was eye-opening for me in that moment. It doesn't matter how much we know or how little we know. What matters is what's relevant to the client, to the child.
Right.
That ultimately they're going to play a game from their projections.
Right.
What matters to them, what they need, what they're seeking, how they're navigating the space. The spaces, the digital tools provides opportunity. The virtual platform provides a platform. It's how the child is going to work through their inner psyche and their outward experiences. That's the play process, what we really want to focus on, not us as parents, us as therapists, us as coaches, professionals, knowing the right way to do things and making sure that we know every single thing. As I said, kids are multiple steps ahead of us. They want to be multiple steps ahead of us. Please lead the way. I will follow. I will help guide. What is it? I would say a guide from behind. I remember seeing something. I don't know how accurate this is, but I think, don't wolves, like the leader of the pack,
The alpha. Yeah, they lead from the back. Yeah.
Yeah. And I saw that once. I'm like, oh, I love that concept that we
Right.
can lead kids like a wolf pack
Right.
from the back,
Right.
having
Love
them
it.
explore with our support. We are backing them up.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if I want to
Love that.
come back to the idea of the usefulness of play and the way that play should be deployed, not just digitally, but that's a space that, as you mentioned, it's very useful, and we'll talk more about. The idea of play is to explore, right?
Mhm.
And it's to explore in a safe way. We talked about it, right? So it's low stakes. You're not gonna go fall off a cliff and die, or go in the street and get killed. You're gonna play in an environment that's a little bit dangerous, but not too much. You might climb the tree a little bit, but not too high. You might do this, or you might come back and my son came back with the first time I let him play alone and went to the hospital. But okay, it's fine, right? And like, you need to let that, like, okay, you're not gonna die. You might get hurt. That's fine, and also emotionally hurt, not just physically, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And the idea when you're saying like leading from the back is like, let them explore. And the other thing is, we talked about emotional regulation, is that, the younger the kid, the more he's going to be, or she's going to be looking, is mommy or daddy here? Because I want to explore. I want to, but I also want to be safe. Right.
Yes.
Right. And then the more they get older and explore more and more, then they can go further and longer. Right. So it's that idea of leading from the back and saying, I got you, but go ahead. Yeah.
Ooh, and I'm thinking about how this also applies to healthy digital citizenship and balance and parental controls. You can lead from the back and also provide training wheels and bumpers, right? Like, it's okay to say, I'm going to set these parental controls, and you can safely explore, right? We do want to add certain parameters to help create balance and structure in intentional ways.
Yes.
So that's something important to keep in mind here as well. And in sessions, it's the same type of thing of like, we set the parameters of the play space, right? We have, every therapist is going to be different depending on their comfort, their therapeutic style, their clinical approach, all of that. But I always encourage therapists, set the parameters of your virtual play spaces, what aligns with your practice and comfort level, and also meets your clients where they are. That's kind of like the training wheels, or not quite the same, but trying to think of the same type of concept, providing parameters of the space. So there are boundaries, so there is safety, so there is comfort, and there's also this sense of permissiveness, this permission for kids to explore in a way that they need, that aligns with them, and they know that the therapist is alongside that exploration process. Exploratory process is the word I was actually looking for.
Well, in terms of therapy, of learning, or education in general, there is this principle where you want to have as much flexibility as possible, yet having a framework that kind of makes sure that that flexibility is contained in some way. And then as you grow and change, and you can explore, and it can be dynamic, and right. And we talked about like parents can be learning from their kids, teachers can be learning from their students, right? So it's not about just creating boundaries and being authoritarian, but just kind of creating frameworks and saying, is that working now? Is it moving? Are we learning the right way? Are we being challenged in the right way? Are the barrier and the framework and barriers too strict or not strict enough?
Yeah.
And but we also want to inform parents that when we're talking about parental control, it's not just going on your phone and saying you're blocking your phone, right? Because that doesn't work. It's more about having communication and looking at what's going on beyond just, oh, I'm blocking you, I'm controlling you. And especially if you're dealing with teenagers, as some of you might, controlling a teenager is something I don't wish on anyone to try.
That's my shit.
Well, in terms of talking about video games, just a real quick question. We won't spend too much time on it, but I was just curious. Here at All, we spend a lot of time talking about addiction, definitely looking at the different risks for addiction. And there are common game genres, right? You've got shooter games, you've got sports games, you've got RPG, you've got strategy, action games, right? These are the 5 common. Which one, Rachel, do you think carries a higher risk of compulsive use and addiction?
Ooh.
Just so we can advise our parents that are listening.
Yeah, so I'm going to say I'm not going to choose a certain genre, because I do know that research is mixed, but also I've seen that like violent video games, there's this thought that causes violence, and that's not the case.
Right.
Because ultimately, I think a lot of these different games can provide a healthy outlet. Like if a child is, let's say someone is feeling more violent and they're playing these games, that I'm not saying that is the case for everyone, but I'm just saying hypothetically speaking, then maybe it's a healthier way to channel those feelings and actually is more of a release than increasing problematic behaviors. So I really think it's more, I don't know if I've never heard of a certain genre drawing a certain presenting concern or being more prone to addictive behaviors. I will say, though, that thinking about the dopamine, right, that like ultimately if a child is really craving those dopamine bursts in whatever genre they're playing and are constantly seeking those dopamine bursts, and this is really where they're getting that pleasure, that can absolutely transform to problematic play. And what is the dopamine for them? It really is going to depend on the kid, right? Like different kids are going to play different things, are going to enter into flow state for different reasons. I don't think it's the actual genres themselves. I think it's what's happening for that child. And is there a certain kind that might draw more kids, people, humans to receiving dopamine bursts? Maybe. But I really do think it depends on each person.
Yeah.
Because you could also play a cozy game and end up becoming prone to more dopamine needs and seeking that out. And then that could become addictive in nature, because you're getting on screen what you're not getting off screen, and you're constantly seeking that reward. So yeah, I know that's not really answering your question, but I don't want to provide an answer because I don't know that there is one, at least from my lens. I'm not saying that there isn't,
right.
But I I would advise those listening, specifically the parents, what reward is your child gaining from what they're playing? Are they gaining some of this perceived reward outside, or are they really, really highly focused on I'm getting my needs met here, or I'm receiving this constant reinforcement here? Of course, we're not going to want to leave. Just like I was saying before, the particular game that the client was playing, it was problematic play. Because while from the child's lens, it wasn't problematic, they weren't getting what they needed elsewhere. And that became problematic, that they were craving it so much because that's what they really wanted. They were getting it elsewhere. So I also tend to phrase, addiction is addiction. We're going to name it. And I tend to phrase it more so as like unhealthy technology use versus addictive, only because I think that it's common for people to lean in and say that things are addictive in nature, and they can be. I'm not saying that they're not. So like, I'm not, saying any opposing viewpoint to, like, it is a problem and it is addictive in some cases. And I think that it's easier for people to say it's addictive versus actually understanding what's going on and realizing it's not the screens themselves that are the problem, but it's other things that are the problem. So then the screens become the issue, that becomes the focus, and the underlying need, it becomes a little further removed. Now, obviously, those that work with addictions know that there is always some underlying need being met. And I think that societally speaking, there is a misperception just from my experience. So that's my 2 cents about
No,
that.
that's exactly how I wanted you to phrase it, to be honest, because there is a myth behind it, right? You know, especially for us that come from the generation of violent video games, violent TV shows equal mass shootings, equal violence in society. That has been a huge myth that we've been able to reach more clarity about
Through
because of the research. Yeah,
Exactly.
because
Lots
of
of
the research.
Yeah.
So if parents can kind of look beyond the genres, look more closely at the reward system that's being offered in the game, and then talk, you know, clearly to their child, what is it about this game that makes you so intrigued? That's going to give them the knowledge to position better boundaries instead of just saying no shooter games. I heard that was bad, let's not do it. So
Yeah,
I really appreciate you proposing the question to the parents. Go deeper. You know,
Yeah.
maybe ask why a couple times when they're talking about their engagement for the game. You know, why is it that you like that? So yeah, I think
Exactly.
that's more clear.
And balance, because ultimately it's, if it is done in a healthy, intentional way, it's okay to have spaces where you're receiving these dopamine bursts and rewards. And if it is excessive, if that is the only avenue, yes, then additional problems will transpire. And with what you were saying before, Christian, with the dopamine, with ADHD, when there is too much dopamine constantly inundating the brain, that can cause problems with executive functioning, which amplifies, ADHD challenges, or even can just impact executive functioning as a whole. And executive functioning, it's in the, I know those who are listening, probably your audience is aware. Anyone who's new that's tuning in, I'll just quickly say the prefrontal cortex is your higher order thinking, your executive functioning, your planning ahead, your organization, all of that. So when your brain is being inundated with dopamine burst, dopamine burst, dopamine burst, dopamine burst, it could be in excess, which actually isn't healthy for our brains. And that's when addictive behaviors transpire. And that's when video games become the problem, or the reason that we're leaning into the video games becomes the problem, I should say. But the video game itself does become the problem. So just because your child enters into flow state, just because your child may be receiving rewards from games, does not make it problematic and addictive. There's a spectrum, I think. And when it starts to venture too into, I'm getting my needs met on screen, we need to intervene. And with therapy, that's when it's so important that I come in to glean insight and support versus this is a problem, don't bring it in.
Yeah.
And thanks for your insight. I also love the way you answered, the question, like very holistic way. It's like not just black or white, not, and thanks, Hema, to find out the science and evidence-based myth busting that we're doing today.
Yeah.
For people, great. And then violent video games. I'm thinking music because yesterday I was talking to a music therapist professor. We're talking about music therapy, and then I'm thinking maybe like there's a myth of like heavy metal and hip hop that's cause violence and stuff, right? So
yes,
yes,
absolutely.
And I love the way you also explain to the audience and to me the mechanism of how that violent game might be an outlet, or it always depends on the context of the situation, right? And is it true that some people doing violent video gaming might be violent? Yes, but it might be true that they do other things and they be violent and vice versa, right? So
outliers.
Yeah.
That's not the common thing. It then, I think, starts to become a more generalized statement about the space in the game, right, versus recognizing, sure, like people are going to enter into the spaces online with perilous intent, wanting to do things to harm other people. That's the reality of human nature, unfortunately. That doesn't necessarily mean that is the case for everyone, right? That the internet is bad or gaming is bad or this is what happens. We are a complex society of a lot of different humans with different backgrounds and experiences and brain functioning and, purpose and intent, right? And so we don't want to make blanket statements about online spaces because there are going to be some humans inevitably online and offline who are going to make decisions that are not for the betterment of our collective.
And the way we talked about digital play and virtual play. This is human monitored, planned. We're having a long discussion. I could go on for hours. Like, this is enjoyable, this is playful, right? This is good use of technology. If you're having good therapy session, if you're playing, right? If you're, I talked about playing games on Zoom, and right. So there's many ways to use technology for good. I do want to again, for the benefit of the audience, like clearly say that there are some types of technology that are more that are designed more addictive than others, right? So we know,
Yes.
for instance, that some use algorithms that mimic gambling, right? So why is gambling addictive? So that's the way the brain is working for alternative chance-based reward. My French is coming. Cannot find the word in English today. I can see it, but I cannot pronounce it. So there's a lot of things that can be said that it's not to say that technology is good or bad, but it can be more addictive, right? So like we talk about, sugar is addictive. Nicotine apparently is not perhaps addictive, but everything else in the vape and cigarette are addictive. Some recent study that I've learned, I don't have the data here, but so there's things that are addictive, right? So we can say that some technologies are addictive, but that doesn't mean that the behavior is addictive. Doesn't mean that the context is problematic. It just means that we have to, have some information about how to mitigate that. And that's one of the things that we've been doing at OS is kind of saying, we're not against technology, we're not against social media, but we're here to at least raise the awareness that this is potentially as bad as cigarette, as bad as alcohol, and maybe as bad as crack, maybe between crack and fentanyl. I don't know. So
there's a pretty big gap there, guys. It's not
Somewhere
bigger than we think.
We'll do an RCT study and compare.
Oh, Christian. Yes.
Absolutely, yeah, especially with like the earn something,
Yeah,
and that's how our society as a whole, or at least say American society, but I think like a lot of humans of accomplishment, achievement, reward, and constantly working towards that, and that does a lot for the brain, right? That can become addictive, or like you're receiving a reward after 3 times, and after 1 time, and then after 5 times, and you want to keep doing it, right? That's the kind of that gambling experience, and that absolutely is present in different games, and I'm sure built with intentionality, because people, some different developers probably want keep coming back to this game. It makes sense. It makes sense from a business perspective.
Exactly. And by those gaming avatars and skins and all those things. Luckily, I'm not a gamer, so I don't even know all the proper terms, but I know that there's some items that you can. So
you're saying the lingo. It's
so if play is how children learn to regulate emotions, then is there implications that screens could be a primary calming tool? You mentioned hopscotch. I love hopscotch. It's great for breathing techniques. So is this a possibility that calm could come from technology?
Oh, show. Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Tell me about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking a couple different things. One, play, just in general, right? Like imaginative free play, whether it is a traditional toy or a digital toy. Still, right? Like having digital tools, engaging in these play space. A lot of these also, a lot of what kids enjoy, sure, maybe have certain objectives, but a lot that I've noticed at least are open worlds where they can create in a way that aligns with them, sure, with certain parameters. But anyways, I just want to say play, period. Play is inherently therapeutic. Play is helpful with emotion regulation. Even if they're working through some heavy emotions and it doesn't seem like that from a play perspective, the working through process and being able to regulate and release, that's all part of that. So I think that is my initial thought. But then also, yes, there are very intentional games that are created for just general entertainment, some for therapy, that have mental and emotional wellness at the forefront. There are tons. I have an app that I go on every single day that's a self-care app. It's called Finch. It's a little bird. I take care of my little friend. We've been together for a whole year, every single day, through thick and thin, every day.
That's impressive. It's been a year that you've kept it alive. That's
also
good.
part of my own stuff. I'm very, very consistent. But yeah, thank you. Yeah, but ultimately, I could leave it there. It'll stay alive, fortunately. It is kind of like for those who are millennials or are aware, Tamagotchi.
Yes, it is.
As soon as you said alive, I was like, oh no, my poor Tamagotchis back in the day.
Yeah, we killed a lot of them.
Yeah. Yikes. Yeah. But it's that kind of mindset of like having a little creature that you have a little room and you have little outfits, and basically I take care of myself, and by me taking care of myself, I take care of the bird. And I just have a list of different self-care things. One is go outside and, notice the beauty of the sky. One is take 3 deep breaths. One is engage in, a more structured breathing activity. One is name something I'm grateful for my body for. Just things like that. It's because I have a tendency to like really lean into things, and I get it done. And I didn't want a self-care app to be like that. So I wanted it to be pause and notice the world around you and really focus on your body. And so that's just one example. There are tons, right? Or games. I love Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing is a cozy game where you have your little villagers and you have your island and you tend to your living space. And during the pandemic, it was really popular and I just grew to love it and played a lot. But that was my very intentional self-care space. And I knew that I was able to have this protected, calming space for a couple hours a night. And it helped me regulate and helped me be able to show up the whole day for my clients the next day during a global trauma experience.
Yeah,
so,
I love that.
So yeah, absolutely. There are tons of games and just spaces that encourage wellness. And I do think that the younger generation, generally speaking, has done a phenomenal job normalizing mental health and encouraging going to therapy. I actually think it has shifted from, oh, you're in therapy, what's wrong with you, to you're not in therapy, what's wrong?
That's so true.
Which is so great. So I think even social media, you have to intentionally curate your content and your news feed, right? But I do think that there are even some experiences on social media where it is very possible to have a calming space. But it takes work and, again, intentionality. Like I have an Instagram page that is my professional page. I only follow other therapists, and everything that pops on my newsfeed is all positive quotes, affirmations, reels about mental and emotional wellness. And then I have, another one where it's, the people from my childhood and growing up and, current day. And it's a mix of stuff, and so I very intentionally will go into, if I need a little extra calming, I'll go into, the therapist followings and I'll, absorb some of that content. So yeah.
I love that. I personally use a forest bathing app where they've recorded forest sounds from around the world. And I will just listen to that when I'm with my parents, because I need to regulate when I'm with my parents. but it works, I go in the car, I listen to a couple of forest bathing sessions, and I'm cool as a cucumber when I come back.
Hema, I think you should play with your parents. That's what you're missing.
I will. I will try.
Let's do
We're
this
really
together.
good. We love to read books together. We're always reading children's books together. So even in my old age, I still read books with my parents. But you're right, Christian. I will play more.
Great.
Forest bathing with Mossy. That seems, I don't know, but I would imagine it's probably aligned.
Yeah, it is.
Like, I have a supplemental thing that we could do together.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah, we talked about the Tamagotchi and forest bathing. I actually wrote a lot about forest bathing. It is one of the ways to increase attention. There's some studies that there's this new theory called attention restoration, which includes nature and social interaction that will regain your amount of attention that we might be losing through short form and other types of screen notifications. And talking about Japan, it also reminds me of during the pandemic and lockdown, I did two things. We're talking about play, and play can sometimes be related to art. So I had created kind of what's up poetry group for many
Oh,
weeks, right? So, and we got to a few hundred, and people were writing and reading poetry every day. A little bit longer than affirmation, and there's also some issues with affirmation if you don't follow with action sometimes. So don't think that just affirmation enough is good, right? So you might need to have some coaching or some action or some goals and goal setting to actually not just say I'm feeling good, but actually do it and feel good.
right.
um, Talking about calm, we do have I did a meditation talking about forest bathing and a lot of not a meditation, sorry, a reset in a program, which is a mix of meditation, breath work, nervous regulation, awe, and visualization. I did one today. I think it was pretty good.
Hmm.
Today, I was in the zone. I was in the flow. It went well.
Awesome. I have to watch it. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
so it's live on Tuesdays, the digital reset, and then we have a Patreon where you can have the replays in the bigger library. So that are some ways that we do at Odd to try to create calm. But those concepts are really based on science. We talked about forest bathing, and that's a way again to regain some attention, to regain some calm. And as I'm currently writing the third book of my happiness books series called "Don't Be Authentic, Pay Attention." So attention, ADHD, all those topics are explored. And if we come back to what we can learn from habits, right? So we talked a lot about addiction. We specialize in digital addiction, but also substance use. We work with clinics and rehabs to kind of conceptualize. I did a lot of research in my first book, Beyond Happy. There's a whole section about habits and addiction. And from the beginning to the end of the book, I challenge anyone that's reading the book or that's here on the podcast to tell me that they're not addicts, right? Everyone
Mm,
is addicts of something,
in
or
some
brain
way.
is wired like that. People in
Mhm.
love, there's some studies that show that love is addiction, that you have withdrawal system when withdrawal symptoms when you leave your loved one, right? So there's so many things that we are addicted, and it's again not to start to label and judge. You can be addicted to a substance or to a phone or to a person or to an emotion. I always say that many people are addicted to anger, right? You probably know,
Mm.
right? So there's many ways we can conceptualize this kind of wanting to be in that behavior or in that mood, that emotion. And love the way that you're saying, Rachel, that it's not about naming, you're addicted or not. It's a spectrum, it's contextual, it's dynamic, right? But it's to know that some things might be more problematic, and if we can regulate the emotion, we can regulate the energy, we can regulate the environment a little bit, we can have better connection. Because what's better than addiction is awe. What's better than addiction is connection, real connection. It's
Mhm.
laughter, right? So it's not only saying you're gonna stop whatever behavior you're doing because you have willpower. It's like, no, we need to find you something better, right? As
Yeah.
we're saying to Hema, and she'll tell us, how it worked. Instead of like being regulating with force baiting, next time play, do something positive, right? And that might create like this gap between the friction of behavior of avoidance, behavior of emotionally regulating with a substance or with a phone, into something that is transcending and positive, right? So that's like the mission at AWE is really positive psychology, and enabling people to not feel judgment about their behavior, but to actually find purpose and meaning to do something better.
Right.
Make
Exactly.
sense of it and do something different that feels more aligned and fulfilling.
And
Not just
play is definitely one of the things that I recommend. If you're playing, if you're laughing, if you're having fun alone and with friends, that's definitely something that will make you less substance abused or abusing people or in anger states. All those things that we're trying to kind of view in a holistic way, right?
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah, something I say in my wellness groups is don't chase the dopamine, chase the discipline. So when you have, an activity like playing with your child for 20 minutes a day, do it for 2 weeks and chase that discipline of doing it every single day. It's far more rewarding than the dopamine hit of doing it once and never doing it again.
Well, the neuroscience also explains, because people are throwing the word dopamine all the time.
Yeah.
That dopamine is used as a neurotransmitter in many things. One of them is in the reward motivation system, which includes the nucleus accumbens and the VTA, and all that. And depending on where dopamine is, it can be more of a compulsion or an impulse. But dopamine also has been shown to not be only used in muscle, but interesting that some people don't know is that dopamine is also used for you to do things that are tough, that are long-term goals. It's not only short-term, right? The same motivation that you use to do something repeatedly, like study 5 years to get a degree, raise a child, do things that are hard, work long weeks at a company. The same dopamine is used for those long-term goals.
Mm.
It's the mindset that needs to be focused on that. You have to have purpose and meaning to use the dopamine in the right way.
Yes.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Any questions for the audience as we're slowly wrapping this up? And any other question, either from Hema, or do you have questions for us, Rachel? You can also ask or add some topics for you.
Nothing is popping into my head. Yeah, no, nothing is coming to me right now. I feel like this has just been a really fulfilling, empowering discussion. And I'm just thinking those who are listening really try to make some time for play. I know the reality of life is it's hard to add one more thing. And, even with talking about parenting and sit with your kid. And like, of course you all want to connect in one way, shape, or form with your child or your children. And there is so much that we are navigating in life. And, adding one more thing onto the to-do sometimes just doesn't feel possible. And I would imagine how many parents are listening and don't even really have the time to nurture their minds and bodies to the extent that they would benefit and would want to. So I think really make time to play and take time to nurture your minds and bodies. Even if it's just 5 minutes to just do something kind for yourself.
Yeah.
But that's really the only thing on my mind right now.
That's great. Yeah. And again, screen time or play or kindness or compassion, it's not, like our resets are designed to be 25 minutes on the Tuesday, but we have some that are 8 minutes. We have some that are 40 minutes. And it's not like we have podcasts that are 45 minutes, or this one is one of the longest because it's just fun, right? The longest podcast because we keep playing. Everyone's playing with us. We're laughing all the way to the bank. No one's getting paid today.
Happiness.
But,
The happiness.
we're just like
this is just dopamine for being present. That's it.
Yeah.
We are
the reward is already in the playing, not in the collateral.
Yeah.
Just wanted to also kind of ask if anyone wanted to contact you. What's the best place to find you? Again, Dr. Rachel Altvater.
Yeah, it's my Beacons page, beacons.ai/DocVater. It's kind of like people usually know Linktree, but it's a page that links all of my different socials and ways to get in contact with me, information about my practice, upcoming training, usually for professionals, but eventually I'll probably have some more parenting offerings. So yeah, that's where you can reach me at.
Awesome.
And Hema, any last thoughts or comments?
Well, I did have one question, if you don't mind, Rachel.
Yeah.
When we were talking about flow and being in a deep concentration state, did we lose Rachel? Oh,
I'm here. I'm here. I haven't left. I'm back. Okay.
She's here. So you're good. So when kids are in those states, is there a strategy that you recommend for parents that need to transition the kids out of deep play that feels more supportive instead of disruptive. Because I'll tell you the truth, when I'm in my state of flow, an incoming phone call is the most irritating thing in the world. So,
Yes.
how would you recommend parents to transition their kids from that state?
Yes. I will answer your question. I'm going to first say that a lot of times parents believe that kids have a screen problem because of the outbursts that occur when it's time to get off of the screen.
Right.
And oftentimes kids are in the middle of doing something, most likely in a flow state. And when that's interrupted, absolutely, it is very irritating. I always compare it to if you were reading a book and you're at the juicy part for whatever genre you're reading, you're at the juicy part, and all of a sudden someone just yanks the book from you. You're done. Whoo! That
Just
would
meltdown. Instant meltdown.
I think it's important for us to recognize the reason for the outburst and not just phrasing it as a digital problem, which that could be it for some. I'm not saying that it's not. It could be. And what is your child doing? Where are they? Is this a live game? Is this a game they can pause? Have they been working towards this game for a really long time and they're like nearing the end and like they've lost all their progress because it's just stopped and they were like in the top 3 of whatever. I mean, I don't know, right? So I think it's important to recognize what they're playing, where they are, helping them with setting time limits in sessions. We have to end sessions at a certain time. Hey, just letting you know, we have 10 more minutes. We have 5 more minutes. Sometimes that auditory like indication is not helpful. So maybe something popping on the screen, something visual, just like a gentle, hey, 10 more minutes, whatever, something where they'd be able to see. Because I know sometimes like Lennox is watching something like, hey, Lennox, whatever. He is so engrossed in what he's watching that I then get closer to him and I'm like, hey, just letting you know, like you can keep watching it. So I think if there's a time limit, that's helpful. I also wait until something is complete. So I will let him know after this scene is done, we're going to pause. Or like after to see how long, after this is done, when it's a good stopping point, but I know sometimes that's just not the case. So if it's not a good stopping point, being able the next time to lean into what are you playing? How long is it before we enter into the space? Do you have enough time? Or if you want to play knowing that you're going to have to end when it's time, like that's a choice you'll make. And that's what happens in sessions too. Okay, this game usually takes you about 20 minutes. We have 10. So either we can play for 10 minutes and then we'll end at that time. And you know that, or we do something different. Yeah. And then the child makes the decision, and they might still get upset, but there's more of choice. So recognizing what your child's doing, visual timers, auditory timers, if possible, definitely recommended. 10-minute, 5-minute, that helps when you're in flow state and you're like, I don't know, I've lost sense of time. But then also, just helping them end when feasible, when it makes sense. So they're like Lennox sometimes gets upset when he's not watching screens anymore, but like for the most part, he's pretty chill. Transitions. And that's because I'm like, okay, where is he? Okay, you're in the middle of a song. Hey babe, we're gonna finish this song and then we're gonna stop. Hey babe, we have 10 more minutes and then we'll stop. He doesn't know what 10 minutes means, but I'm still giving him a heads up. And it's the consistency, the predictability, the schedule. It becomes habit, it becomes known, and it's a smoother transition.
So predictable pacing, setting the expectation prior to entering the activity. Right. Yeah. And then knowing what type of activity they're doing. Is it realistic for the time frame we have?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I love those.
And again, to link this to adults, there's something that's interesting. I've traveled quite a bit and met a lot of travelers. And if you traveled a bit, you probably figured that out as well. Even if you travel for months, when you know that you're going to go back, your brain starts to adapt. And starts to miss home and start to like, right. So the same thing with children, like you tell them like in a few minutes, you're going to, right. So the brain starts to adapt.
Interesting.
Yeah, no wonder why at the end of my trips, I'm ready to come home.
Yes.
I'm always thinking like, that's such a contradiction. Why did I go? If I'm ready to, but that makes sense. Like my mind is already slowly pacing what I know is coming.
Interesting.
It's getting me that readiness to be home. Yeah, I love that.
And the last question from me, we talked about there's much more benefits of play. We'll have you on in a few months and talk about more. Because I'm still doing research on play. Hema is, you're doing
yes,
it
please.
every day. So we'll definitely invite you again. It is really lovely. But my question, the most important, I play a lot. I make jokes in all my meetings. My team know that. I don't know why they're still around because my jokes are not always good. But I'm very playful. Is there a way that you can impress the audience with maybe something that as a play special? Is there a form of play that maybe people are not used to think about as play, and maybe therapeutic or not? But I mean, you have a unicorner. That's
Yeah.
already. I had a CEO friend of mine, bring me a unicorn for the pool, and like as an entrepreneur, a unicorn is kind of a company that's going to make a lot of money. So that was a good kind of play, but the unicorner beats it. But and what's kind of the like interesting play from present, future, or the past that you might share with me?
It's so interesting. Me saying YouTube is something that I don't usually think about, but that's something I already answered. I mean, ultimately, really, my brain is going towards how does each person define play?
Mm-hmm.
What does play mean to you? And how would that show up for you? And that's the answer for each person. For me, I'm trying to think because I'm pretty standard with my my toys. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not really sure if I'm answering for myself. I don't know if I have a method of play that is not aligned with like a typical definition of play. I think I'm so connected to my inner child that like I play with toys and I like to do art when I have the time to be creative. And I know you mentioned poetry, which is interesting. I didn't perceive that as play from my end, but I do like poetry as well. I don't know. I'm not really sure, but I think that to answer it for everyone, defining what that means for you, what that looks like.
Yeah.
And there's no right or wrong. I think that's ultimately the message you're trying to convey here is like, there is a standard method of play that we all maybe understand, but then there's also more seemingly unconventional methods, and play is play, period.
And if we want to go like neurologically or psychologically, it's the ideas of exploration, of curiosity, of sometimes collaboration or competition, but all in a safe environment.
Yeah.
And it's learning, right? So play is
Yes.
yeah.
That is something we didn't, we've kind of, I think, touched base on
Yeah.
at times, but we talked a lot more about like emotion regulation and connection. But yes, it is learning. Absolutely.
And it is linked to mental health. It is right to subjective well-being. It's linked to happiness. That's why it's one of my framework as the 8 Ps. And if all three of us agree, anyone that's watching this till the end, thank you. Go and play. Like there's so much things to do. And lately, I was writing and doing a bit of research. I forget I don't have the quote of the person. This research has been a while, but also defined maybe for the audience a good way to leave. Flirting is a form of play, right? So it's kind of going and trying to communicate, but not communicating, like almost role playing, but in a different way. So yeah, that's one way that you can also conceptualize play. Have like innuendo, subtleties, like everything in your life can be a little bit if you put a little bit of sprinkle of play around that. I hope that everyone can see the benefits. Reach out to any three of us if you want more details. Thank you, everyone that are listening, and especially a big thank you for all the knowledge, laughter, and real explanation. And we covered so much topic, and we still have more to do. So we will invite you again. And thanks again, Dr. Rachel Altvater. Am I pronouncing it right?
It's Altvater. I just go by Rachel though, so you just call me Rachel. But yeah,
Perfect.
it's like Darth Vader.
Yep.
Vader.
Altvater.
Kind of like action. Yes.
I do appreciate you too.
I've pronounced it many ways, and Hema and Hema. Hey guys, we're just playing around. So
we play. We play. Thank you so much for your time, Rachel.
Thank you.
We'll meet again. Bye, guys.
Bye.
And next week, Friday, we have Doctor to Data Alchemist, one clinician's quest to transform healthcare with AI, with special guest Sammy Bahig. So this is Friday, March 8th at a regular time, 12 p.m. And again, thank you for everyone that joined on this beautiful, fun podcast. I still have laughter, repercussion, and yeah, it's been great. Thank you all for
Thank you.
playing and